Madam Clerk, you want to do roll call?
Supervisor Bredefield?
Here.
Supervisor Chavez? Supervisor Magsic?
Here.
Supervisor Pacheco, absent. Chairman Mendez?
I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll start off with the invocation and flag salute, and I'm going to ask my assistant Solomon to do the invocation.
Before we begin, let's bow our heads in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today asking for your guidance and wisdom as we gather to make important decisions for our community. Grant us clarity of thought, fairness in judgment, and humility in our actions. May our discussions reflect integrity and a commitment to serve the common good. Bless our work and help us act in ways that benefit all those we represent. Amen. Now we'll do the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay,
At
if
this-
I think there's extra agendas in the back if anybody wants to follow along. I think everybody's following along anyway, so just anxiously waiting their turn.
We now open the public hearings on fiscal year 25-26 recommended budget.
Okay, I'll turn this over to CAO Paul Nerlin, who will provide an overview of the fiscal year and recommended budget.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board, members of the public. I want to welcome everyone as we begin the 25-26 budget hearings, and we'll go ahead and bring up our presentation up on the screen here in just a moment. All right, as we begin the presentation, our theme this year is Stronger Together, Power and Partnership, and as we move forward in this next year, I think that is more important than it's ever been. As we look ahead and we talk about this budget, I always like to begin by just reminding everyone and ourselves why we're here. Our vision continues to be working together for a quality of life for all. Our mission, providing excellent public service for a diverse community. And so everything that we do in this budget, everything we do as a county, is to achieve those two things in every department, in every service. Before we get into the actual recommended budget for this next fiscal year, I'd like to just take a moment and look back over the prior fiscal year. One of the most difficult things of this part of the presentation is there's so many accomplishments that have happened over the last fiscal year. So to pick just a few is difficult. And so I'm just picking a few highlights of some things happened last year that I think are noteworthy. One of them that I can't overemphasize how important it was is the city-county tax sharing MOU that expired in August of 2020. The MOU was renewed for another 10 years with the possibility for it to be extended another 5. That could take us potentially to 2040. For the public's benefit who may not know, the city-county MOU not only details tax sharing between the county and the city, but also it helps determine how critical services are funded. It also paves the way to better collaboration, future development, in particular economic development. So that was many years coming, and we're thankful to have that behind us. Another year of multiple award-winning campaigns. The county continued a winning tradition in this way. The DA had with her leadership, another fentanyl campaign called You Sell, Your Sell, with resources also provided by the CAO's office. Prior campaigns have been so successful that they've been emulated up and down the state. The issue of fentanyl and the senseless deaths that it has caused continues to evolve, but so do the campaigns, and this continues to get attention, and we're appreciative of the effort. We also had a campaign based on the leadership of Supervisor Magsic when he was chairman. There was a traffic safety campaign that ran from Thanksgiving to New Year's. It was designed by our own communication team on both social media and billboards all over the county with the goal of reducing the number of preventable holiday driving fatalities. Want to note that that won the Capio Award of Distinction in the state for the campaign and for the results that it was able to achieve. I don't have it pictured up there, but another great campaign that received attention is the Mental Health or Men Heal campaign. These were billboards that were put out last spring, a number of local men who lent their stories and images to this effort. All of these were developed internally in our Department of Behavioral Health. It was designed to raise mental health awareness, in particular about men, and it was awarded the prestigious EPIC Award for Graphic Design by Capio. So a continuing tradition of just award-winning campaigns that make a difference in our community. In December of this past year, the new West Annex Jail opened. This $100 million facility that includes 300 beds, several classrooms, exercise yards, medical clinics, enhanced officer safety features, laundry facilities, and more was certainly overdue, and as we all know, replaced the South Annex Jail, which was constructed in 1941. Your board has made it very clear that code enforcement is a priority and has been a priority. And so your board wanted a modern, responsive, organized code enforcement unit with access to real-time data by district and a more proactive operation that helped make our community both cleaner, safer, and one that we can all take pride in. Through your leadership, code enforcement was moved to the sales office, reorganized, given new job descriptions, new positions, and given the resources that they needed. This is the first year in your budget that you'll see code enforcement has its own budget for transparency and tracking, and I could show you so many pictures like this of just showing the results that they've achieved so far. Very proud of the hard work of that team. Animal services is something I just want to note. Your board made a significant investment. Last year, we brought in an outside consultant, Hatching, and it was determined after that report that a significant investment was needed to both stabilize but also to enhance the services for our animal services facility. And so your board approved an additional $3 million annually towards animal services. Another highlight that I just want to mention, more recent, and that is fighting copper wire theft. In April of this year, your board passed a new ordinance making it a misdemeanor offense, punishable for up to 180 days in jail and fines up to $1,000 for any individual to possess, receive, or transport more than 10 pounds of stripped commercial-grade copper wire without documented ties to a legitimate business. And my understanding is that is achieving amazing results, and that what we're hearing is an 80% reduction in copper wire theft, and that it's something that's being replicated in other entities. We also had some reorganizations this past year. The former Internal Services Department was reorganized into two focused departments, and that is the General Services Department, led now by Raymond Hunter, and the Information Technology Services Department, led by Mike Kerr. The intent was to streamline services to focus more directly on each service and customer service. I have to say these departments are critical to the success of every department in the county. As we look back at other things this year, I just encourage all employees and the public, if you're listening, inside our budget book on our website, and we'll soon have printed copies, is the 24-25 annual report that shares more information about every county department. If you're a county employee, I also encourage you, take a few minutes to take a look at that document to learn more about just some of the amazing things that the county is doing and just what the county is all about. As we look ahead now back to the actual reason we're here and we talk about the recommended budget itself. As your board knows, this budget had more pressures than we've had the last several years, and we'll talk about what we did to close the gap since we last discussed this in mid-year. When we talk about the budget, we begin every year by talking about the guiding principles that we try to stick to as we put this budget together. We focus on revenues that are realistic and achievable. And so it's tempting when you're putting together a budget to increase revenue assumptions to where we can do more. But if the revenue doesn't come in to meet that, it puts the county in a very difficult place. And so although this year is less conservative than we've been in the past, it is still conservative. And that's the second one, is we budget conservatively for that reason. We try to adhere to structural fund balance targets, and we use one-time revenue for one-time purposes. And so for the most part, we've done that. This year, there's a couple places to close the gap that we did use one-time revenue to close the gap, but we try to minimize that as we go through this process. The recommended budget before you today, this is the number of positions that are included therein. It is a net reduction of 57 positions. And to be clear where that is, primarily in these areas. So 22 positions were deleted in child support services. We have one grant-funded position in the DA's office that was eliminated with no layoff. In our human services departments, primarily public health, we had the elimination of 28 positions, some of that with the elimination of funding that went with that. At this point, I'd like to introduce Paige Benavidez, our budget director, who will now come speak about our revenues in more detail.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, Board. Paige Benavidez, County Administrative Office. Before we address the total budget in each fund type, I'd like to start, as Paul mentioned, by discussing the county's county-wide or discretionary revenues budgeted for fiscal year 25-26. Countywide revenues, as shown here, are primarily for property tax and sales tax, with secured property taxes and property taxes in lieu of motor vehicle fees comprising about 78%, or $324 million of total discretionary revenues. Growth for these revenues are based on assessed value, and as we'll discuss in the next couple of slides, these are the revenues over which your board has discretion that support the net county cost of general fund departments. Discretionary revenues included in the recommended budget have two components. The first is countywide revenues budgeted in Budget Org 0415, and that is property tax in lieu of vehicle license fees, Bradley Burns sales tax, that's the 1% sales tax. And second is the general fund balance, or the carryover from previous fiscal year. For fiscal year 25-26, countywide revenues are recommended at $418.1 million, which represents a $38.6 million increase from the prior year. And it's important to note, as Paul has alluded to already, that $15 million of this increase is from transfers in from one-time sources, and we'll discuss that in greater detail as we get further into our presentation. The fund balance available for fiscal year 24-25 is $89 million, and that's from countywide revenues that exceeded prior year budgeted revenues and prior year net county cost savings from departments. This amount is allocated and factored into the total fiscal year 25-26 general fund budget. And as I mentioned, discretionary revenues fund net county cost, and net county cost is just the amount needed to cover the shortfall when department appropriations exceed department revenues received from third parties, such as charges for services or state and federal funding. This pie chart shows the total available discretionary revenues broken out by service type. And of the total 507.1 million NCC pie, about 60% of the total of the funds support justice services for public safety. Shifting back a minute to ongoing revenue, net assessed value drives property tax revenue growth. The 25-26 preliminary net assessment roll increased approximately $7 billion, or 6.4% over the prior year's roll. This increase is above the previous 10-year average increase of $4.6 billion, or 5.6. However, due to the rising cost and flattening growth in other revenue sources, this year's recommended budget is based on a less conservative approach to budgeting countywide revenues impacted by assessed value. In the past few years, estimates for property tax revenues included only the cost of living increase associated with Prop 13, which is 2%. However, this budget includes a 4% increase. While this amount is closer to actuals expected, again, we want to reiterate that this is a less conservative approach in terms of planning for long-term stability, and sustainability. Another significant revenue source that is not discretionary for countywide use but funds a significant portion of the public safety departments in the general fund is Proposition 172, and that is your half-cent sales tax for local public safety. These revenues fund a substantial portion of the sheriff's office, the district attorney's office, and the probation department. As we've stated in prior updates to your board, we saw a sharp increase in the revenues from the economic impact of the pandemic during fiscal year 21-22 through 22-23, and we treated much of that increase as one-time funding and appropriately used it for one-time purposes. However, the last couple of years have seen a decline, and for this reason, this budget includes estimated receipts to be about the same as in fiscal year 24-25. The total amount budgeted includes a portion of Prop 172 fund balance, which we will again address later, and CAO has some further comments on this slide.
I just want to point out, if you go back, if you look at that chart, I mean, how amazing it is to think that in 1920, the revenue was at closer to 75 million, and what a dramatic increase that was. Most of that was coming during the recovery from COVID, that Fresno County recovered faster than a lot of our coastal and other areas of the state. Additionally, Fresno County with the Amazon Distribution Center, the point of sale for that is in Fresno County. And so when we looked at our reports up and down the state, at least for that period of time, Fresno County was in the top 10 counties when it came to fastest growing revenue in this category. But as you can see, what's happened now is that it's flattening, and on our current reports, we're now the opposite. We're seeing it either flattening, and the additional part is our pro rata share in the state of this tax is actually reducing as Amazon adds other micro distribution centers in other parts of the state. And so I am thankful. What's not shown in this chart is that every year that we had those increases, we budget significantly less. And it is part of that one-time fund balance from that time that is helping us now. However, the chart that we had up earlier showing the amount of net county costs, those few discretionary dollars that fund public safety, is put under pressure when this is not growing. And so we keep a close eye on this going forward. Thanks, Paige.
So to wrap up our conversation about revenues, I just want to say that it will continue to be important to seek other revenue opportunities to support these increases in costs, such as ensuring that the general fund is sufficiently capturing discretionary interest, while we continue to control cost and make cuts where necessary. We'll now discuss budgeted appropriations, spending authority. The fiscal year 25-26 recommended budget is $5.34 billion in total, of which $2.62 billion is for the general fund. That's the county's primary operating fund. As mentioned, of the $2.6 billion in recommended appropriations for the general fund, only $507 million is funded with countywide discretionary revenues for net county cost. $1.7 billion of the general fund budget is funded by transfers from restricted, special revenue and trust funds. $261 million is funded by state and federal funds recognized directly in the general fund. As shown in this chart, a large portion, almost 90% or $2.3 billion of the general fund budget is for human services and justice services. The increase in the general fund of $104 million is largely due to significant increases in these two service types. The increases for both these types of services are primarily due to increases for contracted services, as well as increases in negotiated salaries and benefits. The increases in appropriations for the human services departments are primarily funded by state and federal funding sources that are restricted for that purpose. Now moving to our other fund types, capital projects, which are used for large or long-term projects for buildings and infrastructure. The increase of $21 million is primarily for probation's building at 200 West Pontiac. And We'll highlight a few other capital projects to be funded with one-time monies, as well as transfers out from the Hall of Records Improvement Capital Project org later in this presentation. Debt service funds are used for payments for our pension obligation bonds, or POB, and lease revenue refunding bonds, or LRRB. Total increase of approximately $2.2 million is required for the scheduled juvenile court facility LRRB Series 2016 and POB debt service payments. Enterprise funds provide services to external users, and those users pay the cost of those services on a reimbursement basis. Examples are the American Avenue landfill and the various disposal sites. The $12.7 million decrease in appropriations is due to the completion of projects at the American Avenue disposal site. The total decrease represents the decrease in the main American Avenue budget org 9026 and the American Avenue disposal site landfill expansion budget, which is org 9905, which accounts for transfers out to that main org. Internal services, or ISFs, are similar to enterprise funds in that they provide services on a cost reimbursement basis. However, the services provided are to county departments and other government agencies. The primary increases this year in the ISFs are for insurance costs in risk management. Special revenue and trust funds are used for monies received that are restricted or committed for specific expenditures or uses. Most of these revenues are received from the state and federal government. And with the exception of a few of these funds, the appropriations in most of these funds are only for transfers to the general fund. These funds are transferred monthly to general fund departments based on actual eligible expenditures. So total appropriations represent a slight net decrease of $285,000. And I'll turn it over to Paul for your budget highlights.
Just a few things I want to highlight that we've kind of beat the drum a few times in this presentation, but as a county, we've generally been very conservative in our revenue, and this still is conservative, just less than what it's been the last several years. So as Paige has already mentioned, with property tax budgeting 4% instead of 2%, so it's less conservative than what we normally do. The one-time funding solutions, again, we'll talk more about where that comes from here in just a moment, but includes some of that Prop 172 as well to get us through. The general reserves, and a chart was shown earlier. Significant progress has been made by your board the last several years. In particular, the last 5 to 7, the amount has been amazing. As many of you have asked, what is our ultimate goal? Our ultimate goal is about more than double of that, but we've made significant progress this year because we were asking departments to take cuts, which we'll talk about in a moment. We've got money that we put in our budget mitigation fund in the amount of $31.5 million. The difference between the two, the general reserve is an absolute emergency type fund. It's the kind of thing where we have an emergency in our county, we can't get things done without accessing. That's truly a break glass, if needed type fund. Budget mitigation fund is something that we budgeted that is much more liquid, that in the event we need it, we can access it, and so $31.5 million was budgeted for that purpose this year. Let's go to the next slide. We've already talked about the slowed revenue growth, and so as we look to the future, some have asked, I did a Q&A for our employees recently, and that was a question was, well, if you look at our property tax growth, it was pretty healthy this last year compared to the prior year. Why are things so tight? And things are so tight because the cost increases have exceeded that revenue growth for this next budget. Comes in a number of categories. As you know, we passed a contract for our in-home supportive services workers this year, but that's about an $8 million cost just for the net county cost. There's other costs, but just those precious dollars increased by that amount. We talked about animal services of $3 million. Our general services budget, we'll talk more about this as we go through, but as we split our department between IT and general services was carrying a deficit from the prior department. So you'll see in some of our departments, the rates increased. In many cases, when you put their rates with IT, it was a wash for the department, but not in all. Jail medical continues to be our biggest contract in the county with another $7 million increase. And so you take those in addition to the normal cost of doing business that increase, from our utility rates to our fuel to our salary and benefits. That is why this year's budget is tighter, even though revenue growth was healthier with property tax, but it's slowing on Prop 172. So when it comes to actually balancing the budget, we talked about the revenue growth of 4%. I'd like to pause for a minute to thank departments who worked closely with our office in working to reduce their net county cost allocations in departments. In most departments, that was 5%. And so keep in mind, those departments experienced cost increases, but had to find a way to come in and make it work with a net county cost reduction of 5%. As I talked to departments leading up to these hearings, I emphasized one thing, and that is, if one department needed more, the only place that we have to get it from is another department or more one-time dollars. And so we keep that in mind as we consider this budget and we consider being prudent in the decisions that we make going forward. Hiring controls were implemented earlier this year, so it's not a hiring freeze, it's hiring controls. Keep in mind those hiring controls keep your board's priorities in mind, and so anything that, the obvious, we are trying to get our correctional officer vacancies down. There's no those are exempted. We're going to continue to make sure that your board priority positions are filled. For the others where we need to hold or manage, we just have a discussion with the department to make sure that we're on top of the budget. And departments have been very good working closely with us to make sure that whatever we do, we meet the mission of the department and the county, your board's priorities, while still being prudent. Paige, I may ask you to speak to the mechanism for the workers' comp reduction.
So this year, board, your budget includes a reduced amount in funding for workers' compensation and general liability insurance. Those contributions are actuarially determined, and the actuarial report includes funding at different confidence levels. Confidence level meaning how confident are we that we can fund that year's liabilities and the reserve for that program. The report includes a range from 70, I believe, to 90 and above. So 75 is where your board has set policy, but then delegated authority to reduce that funding confidence level to risk management along with the CAO. And so what that allows us to do is still fund the programs, which are self-insured up to a certain self-insured retention, at 70% instead of 75%. Those programs are in a surplus as of this last fiscal year, and so that's where we had the flexibility to do that. But again, it is a one-time solution.
As we talk about one-time funding, we wanted to share again just in detail how we closed that gap. So we'll go to the next slide. So it was $15 million total to close that gap. $9 million of that was from interest that accrued from our American Rescue Plan, or ARPA funding. $6 million was from our Hall of Records Improvement Fund, or Future Building Fund, and those are the one-time dollars that were used to close that gap.
I'll also mention that the sheriff's budget includes $4.5 million from Prop 172 fund balance, which we talked about, and $3.5 million from the local assistance fund for jail medical costs, more one time. And as Paul mentioned, the recommended budget includes fund balance usage for budget mitigation of $31.5 million. This does not include, this budget does not include additional contribution to general reserves, which Paul will mention again shortly. The county's goal is to reach a total fund balance level in the general fund reserve of no less than 1 month of annual operating expenditures. General reserves are maintained at $90 million. And over the last few years, we've been able to inch closer to that goal. But budgeting and budget mitigation allows for swift reaction to any budget issues that may arise in departments. A one-time funding partial list includes $8.5 million for critical county repair and remodel projects, including fire alarm replacements at the county plaza and Hall of Records. It also includes $5.1 million for maintenance and modernization projects that are needed at the juvenile justice campus. The recommended budget includes one-time funding from the general fund for capital projects, as shown here. Additional funding of $1 million is recommended toward the maintenance of the courthouse parking structure, and $2 million is recommended for tenant improvements and furniture at Probation's building at 200 West Pontiac Way, and $2.4 million is recommended towards the sheriff dispatch.
I want to take a moment here, Board. I mentioned this in the cover letter to the budget, but NACO has been using the term the big shift, and what we're talking about is just a change really at the federal government level with recently enacted legislation, H.R. 1 or the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, just so we understand the local impact of that. Obviously, counties collaborate with federal state partners to deliver essential services, but as you can see in our budget, $5.3 billion, how much of that is federal and state dollars? It's been estimated that local governments could see a downstream effect of about $1 trillion over 10 years when it comes to services that we may need to be involved in giving. And so really that presents three distinct challenges for counties that we need to prepare for. Number one, if there is diminished federal support for funding-wise, which we'll talk about in just a moment, there will be increased costs potentially for the county. What does that look like? So, for example, and our social services director will speak more to this. Counties are required to contribute more to the non-federal share of administration costs for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, due to federal cost-sharing reductions from 50% to 25%. That doesn't take effect this year. It takes effect in 26-27. But for Fresno County, this is estimated to be about $6.5 million. So I just mentioned that because as we prepare for next year, these are costs that we will need to consider as we plan. There are certainly administrative burdens that the Social Services Department will talk about. Again, some of those make sense, but it's just how the county responds to making sure that we are ready for that. The other part of that is growing demand for county services that may result from the reduced program coverage. And so our goal is to make sure that we are ready for that, but also we can make critical decisions based on that, whether it is prioritizing the top services within your county or cutting costs where we need. So we will continue to monitor that going forward. You will hear some of that from primarily our Social Services Department as we go through our department presentations shortly. All right. With that, we will conclude this part of the presentation. As you know, in a few moments, we will be having departments come up and present their departments, but also to hear questions from you. But at this moment, we will pause and
Is there any
answer
general
questions.
comment from the board at this time? None. Okay, keep going. Me and Paul did not practice any of this stuff.
We are on cue. Very good. All right. With that,
So at this time, board, we're going to transition. And as they're coming, I'm going to invite Jocelyn Cruz, who is our budget program manager. She's going to give a brief introduction. And as she's coming, I just want to thank her for all her efforts. This budget process starts way early in the calendar year, and she has been a tremendous help, not only to our office, but to our partner departments who have worked hard during this difficult budget season. So with that, I'll turn it over to her.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. Excuse me. My My name is Jocelyn Cruz. I am Program Manager for Budget with the CEO's Office, and I'm here to introduce department presentations. The departments presenting today fall under 3 service types. Representing Justice Services will be the District Attorney's Office, Probation, Public Defender, and the Sheriff Coroner Public Administrator's Office. Representing Human Services will be Behavioral Health, Public Health, and the Social Services Department. And finally, representing Land Use and Development will be Public Works and Planning. Each presentation will include a department budget summary with references to the recommended budget book, an overview of key impacts, challenges, and department goals, and then time for the departments to answer any questions your board may have. Also, for the benefit of the public, we have included budgetary terms that may be used in these presentations. Just to highlight a couple, budgeted salary savings is anticipated cost savings from vacant positions, and is often based off historical vacancy rates. And then net county cost for our general fund departments is appropriations less revenues and is funded by discretionary revenues. With that, I would like to invite the District Attorney's Office to begin today's presentations. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Mendez, Board, CEO Nerlin, County Counsel Sloan. My name is Steve Wright, Assistant District Attorney with the District Attorney's Office. Also present with me is our Business Manager, Steve Rusconi, at the table. This morning, we appreciate the opportunity to come and address the Board and the CAO about the DA's Office's recommended 25-26 budget, as well as some of the impacts, challenges, and goals of the office that are directly related to our recommended budget. To that end, there are 2 slides that we have prepared this morning that I'd like to go over, as well as answer any questions that the board may have. The first slide here, as you see, includes the DA's Office's 25-26 budget overview, total appropriations of $54,707,827, total revenues of $19,258,817, and the net county cost, or NCC, of $35,449,010. Now, I'd like to move into the second slide to discuss the impacts, challenges, and goals that impact our budget. The first impact that we would like to discuss this morning have to do with the changes to the criminal laws of the state of California. For at least the past 10 years that I've been in this position, the governor and the legislature of the state of California have continued to author laws and support propositions under the guise of criminal justice reform that have been dismantling the criminal justice system. This wave of refusing to hold criminals accountable for their actions has done several things. One thing it's done is created more crime. How has it done that? By decriminalizing what has always been criminal conduct so that offenders are not being prosecuted and either incarcerated so they can't reoffend or treated for their substance abuse issues that are sometimes the root cause of those crimes. So they remain out in the public. They are able to reoffend. Sometimes their crimes then escalating into violent offenses. Another impact from the changes in the laws are more homeless drug addicts. And for the same reasons that I just talked about above, without the threat of incarceration, without the forced treatment, there's oftentimes no incentive for those individuals to get treatment. Those 2 impacts obviously directly result in there being more victims of property crime. As there are more addicts on the street without being treated, there are more thefts to support those drug and alcohol habits. Adding to this, the governor is continuing with his plan to reduce prison populations and is actually closing prisons by increasing the ways that inmates earn time credits, by reopening closed criminal cases to allow them to be resentenced to lesser sentences, that inmates are continuing to be released on a daily basis from the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. This has a domino effect, causing an increase in criminal activity by people that are not being held accountable. It creates more work for the prosecutors in our office on the incoming additional criminal cases, and also creates a tremendous amount of work fighting to keep criminals that we've already convicted in prison and trying to prevent them from being released early. Not to mention the closures of the prisons are putting an undue burden of overcrowding on the local jails, as we've seen here in Fresno County. A challenge that we continue to have as an office are our caseloads that are high and continue to be high. These numbers remain high because not only do we have the increase in crime that I just discussed, but we have to fight to keep those that were previously convicted in custody serving their lawful sentences. With the expansion of the post-conviction laws and opportunities for resentencing, it's not unheard of for individuals who have already served 5, 10, even 15 years of their sentence to be able to come back to court and ask for a lesser sentence through multiple hearings. Each one of these additional hearings requires that a prosecutor be assigned to the case. They need to research the case. They need to work on writing oppositions and then appear at every hearing on that matter. Another challenge that I'd like to discuss is the recruitment and retention of prosecutors for the office. And although it has been improving, our goal is to continue to improve. We currently, as of today, have 13 deputy DA vacancies out of, I believe, a total of 107 prosecutor positions, including admin and the elected DA and our chiefs. When our employees separate from the county, we attempt to have exit interviews with them to find out if there are things we could be doing better. And some of the things that have routinely come up during those interviews are stress from swelling caseloads. It's become an all-hands-on-deck, seriously, an all-hands-on-deck situation in the office where each of the chief deputy DAs, the assistant DAs, and the elected DA, Ms. Smitkamp, all which have been traditionally administrative-only positions, are now carrying caseloads and covering court calendars. The elected DA is assigned to handle the Veterans Treatment Court. The 3 assistant DAs, myself included, cover a resentencing court that meets every other Wednesday. And I hate to admit it, but because of the time that I have to put into handling these caseloads, some of my administrative duties have suffered. But as a career prosecutor, I have to make a choice and I have to prioritize. And if it means one of my evaluations on an employee is going to be a little late, I'm going to choose to work on keeping a person, a convicted murderer, if you will. I'm going to prioritize working on that over my administrative duties. One of the issues with our recruitment and retention has been lower end salaries when compared with the rest of the state. And we have come a long way in this over the years, and that's with the assistance of the CAO's office and the board, and the associations greatly appreciate that. But the fact is, with the skyrocketing student loans and increased cost of living, the prosecutors are continuing to leave our office for higher paying jobs. Recently, we lost 4 experienced prosecutors to the city attorney's office. In talking to them when they left, they reported an increase in salary of between $30,000 and $50,000 a year and the opportunity to telework up to 3 days a week. In addition to working on our salaries, our office has expanded our presence at job fairs and community events, giving us a step ahead in our recruitment opportunities. We've really beefed up our intern program, our student worker programs, with the thought of getting those individuals in the office, getting them vested with our office at the earliest opportunity. And that's been working, as we have had people that have started out as interns, have come back as student workers, have come back as post-bars, and are now prosecutors in the office. One of the things that, and really primarily it's been DA Smitkamp, has done to combat the opioid crisis and the crimes that flow from it is the ongoing county-wide educational and awareness campaign. And again, the office recognizes and appreciates the funding that the board has approved in order to get that message out. And that money has helped to reduce crime and has helped keep overdose deaths from skyrocketing here in the county. Our DA has become a state leader in the fight against the fentanyl crisis, and the issue will remain a high priority as the crisis is getting worse as the volume of fentanyl continues to increase. As part of that, we have also been one of the few counties in the state to prosecute selected fentanyl dealers who have sold fentanyl that has resulted in somebody dying. So we've prosecuted them as a murder. So far, we've received one conviction for second-degree murder, and we have a second case that's still pending. It's working its way through the Superior Court. And as the crisis continues, we will continue to prosecute those who manufacture, transport, and distribute fentanyl to the fullest extent of the law. Finally, I'd like to discuss DA Smitkamp's work. She worked diligently this past year to assist the California District Attorneys Association to get enough signatures for the Homeless, Drug Addicted, and Theft Reduction Act qualified for the November 2024 ballot that overwhelmingly passed as Proposition 36. This new law does provide a fix to some of the issues created by the passage of Prop 47 back in 2014. And we are now starting to see some repeat theft and drug offenders held accountable. Supervisors, CAO, I hope this presentation this morning has answered more questions than it's raised, but myself and Mr. Rusconi are available to answer any questions that you may have this morning.
Okay, questions from the board? Go ahead.
First of all, thank you for the great work that you do. I know you are overworked and there's a lot that you have to do. I mean, you're responsible for the prosecution of criminals, and I think you outlined very clearly what Sacramento does to make your job difficult, to make our communities more unsafe. And it falls at the feet of our governor and the radical Democrats up in Sacramento. Having said that, we have what we have. There are 13 vacancies. What do you need from this board to close that? Specifically, I know you need increased salaries. I think your salaries are, as I've looked at your salaries compared to other counties, are very low. So how much of an increase do you need? And I think it's incumbent upon this board to address that need. I mean, when you have people going to the city attorney and making $30,000 to $50,000 more, it's not hard to understand why people would leave. So what's your thoughts about that in terms of what this board needs to do to help you keep people as well as recruit them?
Thank you. That's a great question, Supervisor Bredefeld. While recognizing the county has come a long way in increasing our salaries, and we are very appreciative, and I can't put a dollar amount on what would it be to get a full office. But I think the combination of salaries and work environment, I think, would go a long way to keep people in the office. And I think trying to get our caseloads down by increasing the number of prosecutors. So I think if we were able to get people in, no matter what the salary is, as long as we were able to fill these positions and reduce some of the stress and the caseloads, and so people can actually be in their office and prepare, so they feel more prepared when they go to trials, as opposed to showing up on a day when they have 5 or 6 cases set for trial, not knowing which one's going forward. I think having a balance between the salary and reduced caseloads would go a long way in filling those vacancies.
I would encourage you and DA Smitkamp to meet early with our CAO and really come up with the number that you need for adjustments in salaries. It's incumbent upon us to make the determination whether we can do that in the upcoming next year's budget. But unless we make serious changes, I think this 13 vacancies is going to be the same or worsen. It's just common sense. I mean, being a district attorney is a stressful job, and prosecuting criminals is a difficult job. And when you have areas where you can go work somewhere else for a whole lot more money and less stress, I think it's incumbent upon us to make it much more competitive for people to work in the DA's office. So I think that number and that discussion, that real honest discussion about what is really needed, is going to need to happen for next year's budget. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to see this. Lastly, in terms of assisting with copper wire theft, have there been any charges? I know as the CAO has talked about, we've had a reduction just by putting out the ordinance and people understanding there's a threat. Have there been charges filed for anybody with copper wire theft, or is that something still you're looking at?
I think that's something that's still working its way through the system. I can't point to any specific case. I can go back and check and have that answer for you later.
Yeah, because I think we need your help with that. And same with legal dog breeding. It's a big problem in our community, and we certainly can use your support in sending out a message that this won't be tolerated in the community. Is there anything other than what we've kind of talked about in terms of the salaries, the swelling caseloads, and anything else that you feel you need from this board that hasn't been addressed?
I know that the board and the CAO has had to make some very difficult decisions in putting this recommended budget together, and what the board's gonna be looking at whether or not to approve it. And I know, and discussing this with DA Smithcamp and Mr. Risconi, we are happy. We've had to make some cuts, but we think that we've got to a point where we can make it work for the next year.
Okay, I appreciate that. And again, I do encourage you to have a real dialogue for this upcoming budget next year about what level you need to set salaries at. And I'm talking about if you're losing it to $30,000 to $50,000, we need to have that honest dialogue. Whether we can do it or not, I don't know. But as speaking from one board member, I'm very open to it and very open to looking at it because I'd like to see a well-funded and a highly operational district attorney's office that doesn't have 13 vacancies, and in fact, you have people who really want to come work for you because of what they get professionally, and that they can have a family here and raise their family here without losing them to other jurisdictions. So I'm open to that discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Assistant DA Wright. I asked staff to provide a snapshot of all of the positions that we've had since 2019 to now, and just to kind of see a trend of a snapshot. The numbers that I have, you referenced here, I think the first slide, you have it at 217. Our records show 222. CEO might have been some retirements or maybe the 4 that Assistant DA referenced. But I want to also echo the sentiments that my colleague Supervisor Bredefeld made. I like to kind of see what a plan from the district attorney looks like for a fully staffed, office that addresses all of the needs that were outlined in that second slide that you presented. Once we get that, I think we'll have a conversation about what those priorities look like for this upcoming fiscal year. But you just referenced a couple of challenges there with regards to retaining some of our folks. I know that's a very challenging position. I've had conversations with our prosecutors and what that entails. So I like to see that plan as well, too, from our district attorney office. And then my question relates to that bottom portion of your presentation with regards to Prop 36
Yes.
and the challenges. As we're all aware, there was an initiative that passed overwhelmingly by our residents, has not been funded. I think the plan that we're discussing would help make the case for those additional funds to come to Fresno County, which is why I think it's very important to have that. But I guess my question is, what are we doing as a county now to try to implement what the voters and residents overwhelmingly, voted in with Prop 36? What's our plan for this year coming up?
Yes. To get to your first question, the 217 versus 222 employees, is that, Mr. Grimmer, is that for does that count extra help?
This is our snapshot that I think all of my colleagues.
I can jump into that. So I think Human Resources provided those numbers, and that was a snapshot of time of July. So I think that's the difference.
We have had some people separating from the county since that date, yes. And as far as Prop 36 and the implementation of that, we have been a little slow, I think, in the county, I think statewide, to get this initiative off the ground. And I think one of the reasons for that is when the law changed in 2014 with Prop 47 and reduced a lot of the drug offenses to misdemeanors and reduced the thefts with priors down to misdemeanors. So we've had over 10 years of that being the law. And a lot of the officers on the street, the beat cops, have never known a drug offense to be a felony. That's always been misdemeanors while they've been a police officer. Likewise with the petty thefts, it didn't really matter how many thefts you had as long as it was under $950, it wasn't a felony. So I think we as an office have been trying to get out to some of the smaller agencies and some of the Fresno Madera Chiefs meetings and put out some training, some education to get the officers on the street more updated on what the law is, what the change has been, and so they know what to look for when they're investigating the case, so we can implement the will of the voters in Prop 30.
So it's going to require obviously the outreach with all of our 15 cities within the county to bring them up to speed on what offenses are now prosecutable, and obviously you have to make the assessment whether you go down that path, right? With your evidence and everything that you have. But I guess what I'm asking at the heart of my line of questioning is, my office has been doing a survey with our residents, and I can tell you that public safety was at the top of that list. And so I'm trying to reconcile with the snapshot that we got, the positions that we've had in the district attorney's office from 5-6 years ago has not necessarily increased all that much with regards to the population. I've seen the growth with social services, and that makes sense because there's additional residents to serve. So why has there not been an increase in the district attorney's capacity?
Are you referring to the number of cases we prosecute, or I know during, I'm sorry.
The positions and the number of cases that we prosecute.
I would love to add additional prosecutors, but the problem has been since pretty much 2019, 2020, when COVID started, excuse me, the problem has been filling the positions. I think when COVID happened and the world shifted the way that some business is done, we started, prior to COVID, I believe we were at capacity. We did not have any openings, or maybe one or two at any given time. When COVID happened and people started working from home and people got a taste of that, being a prosecutor, it's very difficult. There are very few positions in the DA's office that you can do remotely because this work requires us to go to court on a daily basis, whether you're going through hearings, whether you're picking a jury, whether you're putting on evidence. It requires you to be in person. And I think a lot of individuals that went to law school that are attorneys by trade, when COVID happened and they saw the opportunity to telecommute, telework, they started taking those opportunities. Also, positions in other offices, higher salary, better locations, coastal areas. So a lot of people have moved to those areas, and so we've had a difficult time, obviously, recruiting and retaining to even fill the positions we have. So we haven't. I think it would be disingenuous for us to ask for additional positions when we can't even fill the positions that we.
So that's been the problem. You haven't been able to fill them because when you look at the trend back in 2019, we had 237 positions for the district attorneys. That's 5-6 years ago. Now we have 217, right? So you see this kind of lopsided chart. And by the way, that's not just with the district attorney's office. I have those questions too for our sheriff's department and our probation. It's what's the reason for that? If we're seeing additional workload and additional residents as our population increase, what's the rationale behind that? So.
And we've also tried to become more efficient as an office. I know with the reduction, with the increase in vacancies in attorney positions, with the thought that it's going to be very difficult to fill all of them, we've actually converted some of those positions into paralegal positions. So we don't have as difficult a time getting support staff. And so trying to become more efficient, bringing more paralegals and legal assistants into the office to help support the attorneys that we do have has been one thing that we've done that has reduced our vacancy rates and our number of employees.
No, and I appreciate, by the way, the outreach that you'll be doing to all of our jurisdictions within the county. I think that'll be helpful. And at the end of the day, I think our residents want to make sure that we're able to go after those habitual, burglars and people that vandalize and break into their homes. And that's really at the heart of my question. How do we address those issues that have been permeating for a while? Prop 36 was one of the reasons why I supported it, was because it helps put these folks that are habitually offending out there in jail and keep them in jail. But we need the funding, right? And if we're going to need the funding, we're going to need the data to show this is what our ideal plan looks like. Whether we're able to fully fund it or not, I think that helps make the case too on that. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Nathan?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you very much. And Paul, I think that's something we're going to have to even start looking at between now and the next budget to really take a deep dive and figure that out. Although it doesn't sound, fiscally, it doesn't sound as bad because you did actually fund the 13 positions that aren't being.
Yeah, and spending a lot of time with both the DA, but also with the Prosecutors Association. So I've learned a lot about the struggles and what they're dealing with, so I can appreciate it very much. Your board, we had a contract that was approved in June, so there was a 3% increase in June. Scheduled in June of '25 is another 2 to 5%. Basically another 15% over the next,
Right.
up until June of '27. So it's staggered, but we need to continue to work and see to make sure we get these filled.
Yeah, and if I could just add, I appreciate the fact we have given raises and they've been generous raises, but we need to make sure that the salaries are what they're supposed to be. I'd like to see a comparative analysis perhaps between Fresno County and some of the other counties that are similar to ours, not coastal counties, but similar counties, and where are those salaries at, and where do we rate in comparison to those salaries? I think that would be a benefit to me, who's willing to look at what, if we need to make adjustments, what they are. And I think the only way we can make those adjustments is we have that comparative analysis.
Okay, so all I was making a point is the gap that needs to be plugged doesn't appear to be as big as theoretically you would think, because we don't have those 13 positions filled. But if we had them filled in the next year's budget, it would be even compounded. Then it would be really compounded.
Yeah, and I'll add to just a comment here that, and you'll hear this in several presentations, it would be a wonderful thing if the DA comes to me and says, Paul, we're not going to make the salary savings. I hate to say that, but that would be the case. If we're actually filling those positions and I have to come back to your board and we make an adjustment. So by doing it this way, we budget what we need, but the commitment I've made to every elected department head and appointed is we'll work together to make sure that the priorities are filled.
Thank you. So we can go to the next hearing? Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, good morning, Chairman Mendez and to the board. I'm Kirk Haynes, your Chief Probation Officer for Fresno County. And with me today, I have Deputy Chief Yusel Zalapa, who is our Administrative Deputy Chief over our budget. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity for us to be able to present the 25-26 recommended budget for the Probation Department. And I'll get right into it. Well, actually, before I get into it, I want to say thank you to CAO Nerlin and his office and Paige. They've been awesome to be able to work with in preparation for this year's budget. But we want to get right into the presentation. So we have 3 slides for you today for consideration. First is this first slide where we talk about the budget appropriations for 25-26. For 3430, when you see the budget org there, that is for those divisions who take care of all of our community and service kinds of things out in the community. A budget of $68,768,364 represents a 2% increase over the fiscal year 24-25 adopted budget. For our revenues for this org recommended at $57,796,288 represents a 3% increase over the 24-25 adopted budget. And then for net county costs, the recommended amount received was $10,972,076, which represents a 3% decrease from our 24-25 adopted budget. Staffing is recommended at 362 positions, and that's the same as the current level that we had in 24-25. I should also mention that another thing that does impact our budget, even though it's not under the county's net county costs, is state funding that comes from different sources. And one of those is Senate Bill 678, which funds adult operations across the state of California. And it's a formula that the state puts together in order to determine how much each county receives for that funding. And it's been tied up in the legislature for the majority of the budget year. And so I believe this week they'll be finalizing the 678 numbers. And so hopefully we'll get a chance to see what that and how that impacts us as well. Also for your consideration is when we think about 26, 27, I think it's important for us as a department, as we've done before, is to try to forecast what do we need to do in the future budget to make sure that we don't run into any major problems. But just keeping in mind for all of you to consider is that $1.4 million is going to be lost from adult fees that the probation department and others have had a chance to receive. And so that funding will sunset in 26, 27. So just to let you know, the revenue loss of about $1.4 million in next year's budget is something that we will be planning for in 25, 26. Under the 3440 budget order, which is our institutional budget order, the 25, 26 budget appropriations are $52,815,670, which represents a 6% increase over our 24, 25 adopted budget. And then revenues at $33,896,136 represents a 13% increase over the 24-25 adopted budget. Primarily, that's due to an increase in the use of available DJJ or Division of Juvenile Justice realignment funds, also CalAIM PATH funding, and also juvenile realignment funds as well. Under the net county costs received, this year's $18,919,534, which represents a 5% decrease from fiscal year 24-25. And staffing in the JJC area is recommended at 241 positions, which is the same as in our current budget. And then move on to our next slide, which talks about impacts to the probation department. And you just had the conversation with the district attorney's office around vacancies. The probation department has been, I think, really conservative about how we have filled vacancies over when we think about what we did in 24-25, in light of the fact that we knew that this was going to be a challenging budget in order for us to get through. So we have held vacancies. In fact, today, we have 28 deputy probation officer vacancies, 28 of 215. In the JCO ranks, we have 50 of 197 vacancies. And then for our probation tech classification, which is really important because they provide support to our probation officers, we have 17 vacancies of the 40 that are allocated for this classification. That's as of September 10th of this year. And then for context, when we think about the last time we actually did a recruitment for deputy probation officer, that recruitment closed October 2023 in anticipation of what the 25-26 mitigation efforts that we'd have to be able to do. So we have not hired a DPO. And under that last recruitment, I think we last hired a deputy probation officer end of 2024. Now, in terms of what we need to do in the future, I'm going to work closely with the CAO to fill targeted DPO positions in the 25-26 budget year due to just impacts to what we anticipate being and what we've already seen, where we see that we've had to combine caseloads. We have officers who are covering several caseloads at one time right now, which isn't the greatest thing for us to be able to get through the kind of public safety things that we need to be able to do. So, but we'll work with the county HR and the CAO to figure out, once we've learned what is the most prudent way to be able to move forward with hiring, we will be doing that for the deputy probation officer classification. And also I want to just say thank you, because recently we were able to fill a number of their probation tech vacancies as well. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the CAO and county HR have been really instrumental in allowing us to do continuous recruitments of our JCO classification, which has been really helpful for us, our recruitment and retention efforts. And also facilitating the creation of a reserve JCO classification, which also provides a relief factor to our full-time JCOs there in the institution as well. Now, in our supervision divisions, our caseload ratios are directly impacted directly impact how we supervise felony cases. So the department will be prioritizing resources around the most serious felony supervision caseloads as we look at the number of POs that we hire, and then looking at the divisions to see where is the most critical need for us to be able to fill those positions. And so that also may mean larger bank caseloads for our less serious clients on supervision. For our operational challenges, where it talks about difficulty in meeting mandated service requirements and our difficulty in maintaining minimum staffing levels at the JJC, the department's going to focus on mandated services, which when we look at the kind of things that probation departments are tasked with doing, and making sure that we write pre-sentence sentencing reports in the adult and also in the juvenile divisions. They're called disposition reports. Of course, operating the JJC is a mandated program that we have to do. So when we look at the kind of things that the department is going to be focusing on, is to make sure that we're meeting those court mandated duties that we do have, but also looking at what kind of work we're doing out in our supervision areas to make sure that we're supervising those who need the most either supervision, programming, treatment, those kind of things. We're going to focus our attentions there. And at the JJC, staffing levels, if they are low, they impact our ability to meet our Title 15 and Title 24 mandates from the Board of State and Community Corrections. So when we think about programming, exercise, visiting, meeting educational requirements for our youth in custody, if I don't have enough staff to be able to make sure that kids are getting to school or kids are getting the programming that they need, that's certainly a challenge that we have to overcome. And then not to mention the state's increased oversight from the Board of State and Community Corrections and a new office called the Office of Youth and Community Restoration. Their oversight has become a lot more prevalent as well. And so as those entities continue to be a lot more involved in the work that we do to make sure that we're meeting Title 15 regs, it'll continue to be a challenge to the department to make sure that we're meeting the need and meeting the regulation requirements if we have lower staffing levels. For strategic goals, we have here to sustain and enhance internal cost controls and to address current and anticipated budget constraints. Also, to conduct a comprehensive review and a modernization of existing workflows to take advantage of new technologies and to improve overall efficiency. So when we think about what those things mean, really we need to sustain and enhance our internal cost controls that we've already been doing over the last fiscal year. So we're going to continue to be really smart and prudent about how do we hire, how do we look at how we do business, even looking at the fleet, how much our fleet we're going to be able to have. You know that we're going to be moving over into the new Pontiac building, hopefully early in 2026. We're going to realize, some cost savings there because we'll be able to combine resources that normally we wouldn't because we're so spread out. So we're going to be taking a look at those kinds of things to see where it is that we can try to become a little bit more prudent about how we're spending our budget. Also to think about is a reorganization of our department to enhance first-line supervision. The CAO was helpful in approving our opportunity to be able to restructure our department and what that's going to look like, and to be able to do that at a cost neutral way, so that we're not increasing our budget in order to get that done. And also to explore AI technology to increase efficiencies and to enhance supervision. We're also going to be going paperless. That's one of the mandates we have moving into 2026 to try to eliminate all those kind of things and increase our technology footprint as well. And these kind of things are really critical to respond to the need of and making sure we have a community presence out there. If we don't do these things to try to stabilize staffing, to put our staff where the true need is, then we will see an increase in crime amongst the folks that we supervise. That ends my presentation. I do want to say thank you to CAO Nerlin. Also want to say thank you to Ed Hill, Paige, Sam Buck, Fine for their support. And also I want to say thank you to Deputy Chief Yusel Zalapa and his team for the great work that they've been able to do in order to get us balanced budget to you. So thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Got any questions?
I was just going to say, Chief, I appreciate all the work that you do and all the people in the probation department and what you do at the Juvenile Justice Center. Yeah, I was out there, and it's great work, and it's challenging work, and so I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief, for that presentation. Just for the benefit of the public, how many folks are on probation in Fresno County currently?
Depends on how you look at that. When we include all of our warrants and those kind of things, it's about 13,000 altogether.
13,000. And you do all that work with just the positions that you mentioned?
We do all that work with just those positions that we have. And like I've said, over the last year and a half, we've done it while not filling some needed positions to have cost savings so that we wouldn't, at this budget, have to lay, people off. We were really cognizant about how we do that. But also, our executive team and Ucell and I have thought about what does 25, 26 look like while we try to fill some of those gaps. And so we'll be able to do that, but it's going to be, thinking about 26, 27, we still are going to have an eye toward that. But certainly, we're going to have to fill more of our probation officer positions and, of course, to continue to fill our JCOs at the same time to make sure that the youth in custody stay safe as well.
Appreciate that and appreciate the work you're doing with our youth over at the JJC. I think Focus Forward is one of the programs.
Great partner.
And they're having a celebration, I think, later on this month or next month.
Right.
So,
Hopefully, you can come to the magazine launch. Yeah.
thank you for that work.
Thank you so much.
So to build on that a little bit, so 13,000 individuals that are on probation or parole. I know back in May, I had your office run some numbers on how many individuals are on probation or parole who are also homeless.
Right.
And in May, that number I think was 814, but it could be as high as 1,400 because there were 600 whose whereabouts was unknown, and it's likely that those individuals were homeless as well. So the reason I wanted to just kind of point that out is we could 1 in 10 of our folks that are on probation or parole could be homeless with certainty that at least 814 as of May were on probation or parole, according to the numbers that you were sending to me. So it's a staggering number. And one of the trends that we were seeing is as prisons were being closed across the state, the number of homeless on probation and parole continues to grow. So it appears there's some correlation between closure of prisons and our homeless population increasing individuals who are on probation and parole.
We have seen a steady rise. When we think about those that are unhoused, and we have some that, they may not have stable housing, so they're couch surfing and those kinds of things as well, but those numbers are all incorporated into what we send to you.
Excellent. And then one other thing, too, that I'm very excited about in the budget is some money for Mr. B and his welding program to work with kids that are at the JJC to become certified in welding programs. So was very impressed with him as well as the other teachers that we have there at the JJC, trying to help transform and reform individuals that are incarcerated. So looking forward to those facilities to be expanded and kids having an opportunity to get additional certifications as well.
Right. I agree. And I want to say thank you to the board for the commitment that you've made to the department in so many ways. And you're right, that $1.5 million to enhance our welding program, it'll do nothing but improve the outcomes that we've seen. And we've seen great outcomes from that program and Mr. B and the work that we've done with FCOE. So I want to say thank you to the board for that. I want to say thank you to the board for approving also some really needed capital projects out at the JJC. It was built back in 2005, 2006, and so that building is starting to see its age out there. And so the commitment that you've made in order to get some of the capital things that need to be done out there are huge. Brand new camera system is going to be another opportunity that we'll be able to really enhance safety for youth and also for staffing as well. So again, I want to say thank you to the board for your commitment to the probation department as well.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you so much.
Impossible job, but you get it done.
We're getting it done.
Yeah.
We're getting it done. But I don't do it by myself. I mean, of course, I've got a great executive team, but at the end of the day, it's our probation officers, our JCOs, our victim advocates, our support staff who make sure that even in tight budget times like this, they still do the job, they do quality work, and all doing this all just they just want to change the lives of people. And so we've got a great group doing that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We're done?
Go.
We're done? Thank
Yes.
you. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors, Mr. Nerlin. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Antoinette Tylek, and I've had the honor of serving as the Fresno County Public Defender for the past 4 years. I'm joined today by Jason Sorensen, our Assistant Public Defender, and Angel Lopez, who's our Business Manager. Before we begin our very brief PowerPoint presentation, I want to express how immensely proud I am of the work that my department does and the invaluable service that we provide to this community, because we are also a part of public safety. Every day we stand up and we defend the Constitution. We fight for fairness and justice, even when it's not popular to do so. I am often asked, how do you do what you do? How do you defend these people? And for me and for my colleagues, there is no greater honor than fighting for the marginalized, the poor, and the disenfranchised members of our society. It's about ensuring that the playing field is fair and that people are treated with dignity, respect, and humanity, regardless of their circumstances. And on a personal note, for me personally, when I'm asked, how can you do what you do? I think of the Beatitudes in the book of Matthew. And that is the reason why I do what I do. So blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they will see God. And blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. And blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So for me, this is not just a job, it's a calling. This is why I do what I do as the many dedicated public service for servants in my office. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lopez, who's going to go through some of our budget numbers with all of you. Angel, do you want to come up here?
So good morning, Board. My name is Angel Lopez. I'm the Business Manager for the Public Defender's Office. I wanted to start by really thanking the CAO for all his support. Also, the budget team. They've been really helpful with us, and they work with us and help us navigate whatever issues we have. This is the 25-26 budget for the Public Defender. As you can see, for 25-26, we're at $33,246,260. That's a 0% change. Total revenues increased from $5.7 million to $6.3 million. That was an 11% change. We got some unexpected funds from the state. We have some other programs that we're trying to get money for as well to increase our revenues there. Our net county cost is actually reduced $704,000 from the previous year, a 3% decrease. For our staffing, we still budgeted for 171 positions. We have some of the same issues that the district attorney has. We have 20 vacancies in our defense attorney positions that we're working on trying to fill. Next slide. So for impacts, challenges, and goals, we are also having the same problems the district attorney has. We've made a lot of efforts to recruit. We've been going to school fairs, job fairs. We have student workers that come into the public defender's office, and some of them progress as well to post-bars or attorneys later. We also have a huge caseload, similar to the district attorney, so we play a part in that whole justice system, and we need, in order for us, or for the system to continue to work, we need to also have the attorneys to be able to handle the caseloads. And so if our attorneys are not filled, it slows down the sheriff, it slows down the processing for jail, it slows down the district attorney cases. So it's also important as well. We have the challenge of retaining talented staff as well because promotional opportunities are limited. The salary for a starting attorney is a little bit lower than a lot of the other counties. And so that's something that we need to work on. Some of the goals are to try to find other funding as well, to try to access other public defense resources. As these new state laws are coming into effect, the state is needing to provide funding for those laws that come in. And so that's something that we're prioritizing and trying to find other revenue sources. If you have any questions for us, we're here to answer them. AT?
Do you have any questions?
No questions. Just wanted to thank you for the work that you do. You are part of public safety, and oftentimes your work is not celebrated. I might not appreciate some of the people that you defend, but I do appreciate the work that you do, because I think it is critical and important to do that, to have somebody be granted their due process here in our county. So thank you and your team for the work that you do. Oftentimes your office is not celebrated. There's oftentimes memes associated with office, right? What is that old saying? Just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. I think you work in that space, and it's not oftentimes a comfortable space, but I do appreciate the work that you and your office do. Thank you.
And I think it's important to remember, you can't send people to prison without a public defender standing there in court. So we are a part of public safety, and we are part of ensuring that people's freedom and liberty that are at stake, that the government does what they need to do and holding them accountable. And actually, we do have people that are innocent. And that is horrible when someone is innocent and they're in jail. And we go all out for those cases. So if it was your son or daughter, brother, sister, I think you would want an attorney from my office representing your family member.
Gary?
Yeah, I too appreciate what you do. It's not easy. Often you have people who are proven guilty in a court of law. You still have to defend them. That's the justice system. I would defend that. Everybody should have a right to an assumption of innocence until they are proven guilty in a court of law. And many people that you represent can't afford that. And that's why we support that. I support that. And want to give you the resources you need to do your jobs, because it's an important part of the legal system. And everybody does have a right to presumption of innocence and a defense. I did want to ask you, in your materials, you say you hired 2 new immigration attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
What is their role?
So because of the immigration laws that have changed and the consequences that our clients are facing, they have to be advised by an immigration attorney, not just a defense attorney. So it's a very different area of law.
Is this new? Is this new that you've hired these folks?
We've expanded that unit. We have had an immigration unit for probably 6 years. Yeah.
Okay. Does ICE play a role in what you're doing with these immigration attorneys, or no?
Well, ICE has created a lot of problems in the courthouse. That's for another discussion.
Well, I don't know that they created. You would say they're a problem. I say they're not. But so the issue is, do you were shaking your head? No, they don't interact with ICE.
No, we don't.
Okay. You want to put the mic there so people can hear you? Oh.
You can come up here, Jason.
I think it's important to understand that the role of our immigration attorneys is to advise us on specific issues dealing with immigration, because as a defense attorney or an immigration attorney, you have to advise your clients appropriately, and they become very specific. The laws are very nuanced. And so that burden or ethical obligation is to our clients to appropriately advise them. And that's why we have these immigration attorneys, so that they can look at these cases, they can advise our defense attorneys and tell them what would be immigration safe, what isn't, and various other aspects. And it requires quite a bit of work.
Okay. Well, and just in reference to your comment about ICE, if the governor and the legislature just allowed criminals who are here illegally to be handed over to ICE in the jail rather than releasing them into the community, it would be a lot safer for everybody. But unfortunately, that's not what we have up in Sacramento. So it's more unsafe for our families. That's all.
Any other questions?
Nathan, you have any? Well, you don't have to have anything.
Well, since you inspired me, buddy, you inspired me. So having an equally yoked criminal justice system is very important. One of the comments you made, and I just want to touch on that briefly. I think I heard you saying, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard you said that we have people in prison or jail that are innocent.
Yes.
So you are aware right now of individuals who are innocent that we have put in jail.
We are representing some of our clients, yes, that are innocent. And we build up their case, we work up their case, we go to trial, and most of the time they're found not guilty.
Excellent, because the reason I wanted to just point that out is so the public defender and also with the district attorney's office, as I understand it, and please correct me because I'm not an expert in this space, but if there's ever any information that beyond a reasonable doubt proves innocence, that information has to come forward. It's discussed even before it gets into goes to trial. And a judge will look at that information and throw, a case out and have someone released. Is that correct?
There's certain safeguards, and we actually have a really good relationship with our district attorney's office, and we've been able to sit down with some of them, show them the investigation we've done, and they've actually dismissed cases where they also believe the person didn't do it.
Excellent. So again, justice is balanced. If ever one side or the other comes across information that shows that someone is innocent, it's not that one side wants to convict, it's what is the evidence. It's all about the evidence. And so clearly if the evidence shows that they're innocent, both sides want that person to go free.
Yeah, and unfortunately, sometimes it has to go to trial.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. Again, thank you very
Thank you.
much, and you guys did good. You only were on for 11 minutes. That's good. Yeah.
All right. I will do my best to keep this under 11 minutes. Chairman Mendez, members of the board, I want to thank you for this opportunity to present the Sheriff's Office budget for the fiscal year 25 and 26. This year, instead of clicking through a bunch of slides and hearing me talk, we're going to give you an even better visual. We want to show you where your tax dollars are being spent and the people and the services behind those numbers. I want to thank a couple people. I want to thank CAO Paul Nerlin for working with us on this budget, his staff Paige, Samantha, if I missed anyone else. They were great throughout this process. And from our staff, I want to thank June Maeda, who's here today, and Captain Brandon Purcell, who helped put this together, along with our Public Information Officer, Tony Body. A budget is more than a financial plan. It's a reflection of our community's values. Each line item represents choices Fresno County makes to keep neighborhoods safe, detention facilities secure, and residents protected. Our recommended budget for the coming year is $385.4 million, which is an increase from last year, and I want to thank you for that. While numbers matter, they only tell part of the story. The true story is how these resources support our deputies, correctional staff, professional staff, our volunteers, and all of our specialized units at the Sheriff's Office. For the next few minutes, you'll watch a video where we show you how these investments translate into real services and how every dollar reflects Fresno County's commitment to public safety. Can we start the video?
Vehicle stop, Paul Michaud.
At the Fresno County Sheriff's Office, the largest portion of our budget is people, the men and women who keep Fresno County safe. Their salaries and benefits total $256 million, which is a 10% increase over last year. It's driven by negotiated contracts and the overtime required to meet demands. Taking that point further, we are budgeting $26.3 million for overtime costs this fiscal year, which is a 204% increase from last year. Why so much, you ask? Because we have data from actual costs last year to show it's going to be needed. While we are budgeting realistically, we are also working hard to reduce overtime wherever possible. It's important to recognize overtime remains high because our employees are constantly responding to unexpected events. Things like natural disasters. We're talking wildfires and floods. And then there are major investigations like the recent Operation Shock Collar, a large-scale gang takedown where the thousands of hours poured in by law enforcement resulted in the arrests of 89 criminals, dismantling their violent network. All of these events are unpredictable, so they can drive up costs, but they are also where our deputies make the biggest differences. Services and supplies total $124 million. This supports everything from mobile communications and liability insurance to fuel, utilities, and technology. These are the tools our people need to do their jobs. One of the largest cost drivers is our jail medical contract. In fact, it is the single largest contract in Fresno County's history. We recognize just how significant this expense is, so we keep in constant communication with other counties to shop for the best possible deal. We have budgeted $4.9 million for capital investments. These investments touch every corner of the sheriff's office. We're talking patrol, investigations, detention, coroner services, and special operations. A more specific breakdown of it includes 40 new patrol vehicles, a search and rescue truck, K9 units, our drones unit, and critical technology upgrades. All of it aimed to keep both the public and our deputies safe. Due to rising costs, we actively pursue grants to offset expenses. One example is the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, or ICAC. This is an elite team of detectives fully funded by grants. They target sexual predators by serving search warrants at homes, and they run undercover chat operations to identify predators who are trying to spark relationships with kids online. Then they try and meet up to sexually abuse the child. But they are surprised to see us show up and arrest them. Again, protecting our most vulnerable at no direct cost to the county. Another way we save taxpayer dollars is through our volunteers. Our search and rescue team is recognized as the best in California. We have more than 100 dedicated, well-trained volunteers who respond to emergencies day and night without pay, but with unmatched professionalism and skill. Every dollar saved through grants and volunteers helps us direct more resources into core law enforcement functions. So in summary, your continued support allows us to balance rising costs with innovation, efficiency, and community partnership.
I hope you enjoyed the video. It was put together, like I said, by Tony Body. I think he did a really good job on that, and I think it puts things into perspective about the kind of services that we provide our community. Remember, your continued support allows us to balance our rising cost with innovation, efficiency, and community partnership. As you've seen today, our budget is large because our responsibilities are diverse, but every dollar is accounted for. We remain committed to transparency and fiscal responsibility, ensuring the public's trust as we manage these resources on behalf of all residents of Fresno County. As I said before, a budget at its core is a reflection of our values, and the Fresno County Sheriff's Office shares those values with you to protect lives, safeguard communities, and ensure justice across Fresno County. As we were talking earlier, I want to put some things into perspective. We talk about wildfires. In Fresno County, we had a wildfire, the Salt Fire out in Coalinga, and we had the Garnett Fire up by Washawn and Courtright reservoirs. The distance between those fires, almost 150 miles. We are the 6th largest county geographically in California and the 10th largest when it comes to population. To put some of this into perspective for you to see where your money's going, the population that we serve in Fresno County is equal to the population of Tulare, Kings, Madera, and Merced counties. That is the number of people that we serve on a daily basis as the Fresno County Sheriff's Office, and so do many of our other county partners. So to put that into perspective, we are covering what those 4 agencies cover on a daily basis. And with that, is there any questions that you have about our budget, about any of the numbers, or anything else I can answer?
I'll just say unexpected emergencies, military jets crashing.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. Thank you, Supervisor Mendez.
Go ahead.
I would just say appreciate what you do, Sheriff, and all of your the people who are in law enforcement, and your job is a huge one. The area you cover is immense, and you do a great job of doing it, and you do it every day, and all of your officers and support staff we're grateful because you're the frontline defense for ensuring that our communities are safe. So I don't have any particular difficulty at all with your budget. I did want to ask about the other building you're looking for at the coroner's office. Do you still need that building? And if so, what's happening with that?
We absolutely still need that building. I think those of you who've been on a tour of the coroner's office could see where our coroner staff has to eat their lunches. Sort of the common areas are down a couple hallways, right off the main hallway where the intake is for the coroner's office. And I don't think I have to explain what comes through the intake area at the coroner's office, and then the area where the actual autopsies and examinations are conducted. So we're working on that. It's on our list of priorities. Obviously, we're looking for a new dispatch center and some other things. So we're going to have to pace ourselves when it comes to this. But that is something we need to do for those employees. That is not a good work environment for them.
So do we have estimates on what that would cost? Do we have any plans for that at this point, Mr. Nerlin?
Right now, it's early in that process. We are working on a facilities master plan that would include this, so that we're looking at all those things at the same time. As you know, we've got a lot of moving pieces, and then also, maintaining those that we have. But it's clear that we need to do something with that facility. So I'll be working closely with the sheriff to identify sites and come back to you with options.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, because I want to move forward. I was out there. Is obviously a great need, and so it's something I think we need to get advance and do that in the next budget. Thank you, Sheriff Zanoni, and to all the folks who work in the department.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sheriff, for the work that you do and our deputies out there. I also had the opportunity to tour that facility, and that was actually going to be one of my questions that Supervisor Bredefeld asked. So it's going to be part of the master facilities plan that we're working on. My hat's off to the team over there. I think it was is it Lieutenant or Captain Purcell? I don't want to demote or promote.
Captain Purcell.
Captain Purcell that did that tour. Thank you for that. I don't think our residents really understand the challenges of obviously processing people that sadly have passed away on a daily basis out there. But your team does it with a lot of dignity and respect, and I appreciated that because I think at the end of the day, everybody goes through that somehow or another. So I too would be supportive of that facility getting what they need in order for our team to have, that space for them to eat and take a break from the challenging work. And then also thank you to our jail staff. We got a chance to tour the facility, the West Annex Jail, and really appreciate it. Not just the emphasis on the jailing of individuals, but also on giving them a venue and a space, workforce development. A lot of the participants there that will have a trade now when they get out of jail to go out and get a job and hopefully build a career. I think we need more of that in the jail, Sheriff. So whatever you can do on that space, I'd like to be supportive of that too. Thank you.
Well, you got to see the quilting program, and I think that is very unique. Those women in that program can get employment when they get released from custody. And if you go to different nonprofit events and things around Fresno County, some of their work is actually auctioned off and given away, and some of it actually ends up with our deputies out in the field to give to people as well. So very, very productive with that, and very positive thing that comes from that program.
Nathan, you got anything? Okay. No. Thank you, Sheriff, and great presentation.
Well, I say thank you to my...
the budget that I seen, department budget that I seen the most before today was yours. So very familiar with your budget, and I want to congratulate you on your attempt to contain it.
Well, I know the overtime number is a high number, but what I was told by many of you and everybody is we wanted to have a realistic number based on where we're at from last year. And I believe that is a realistic number. And I want to also mention that some of the bargaining units actually have helped us out trying to contain and mitigate overtime. Unit 1 went with a vacation relief positions this last year, and we're looking to increase that for next year, which we plug deputies in to help mitigate overtime. Sergeants and lieutenants have also taken a change in minimum staffing. Now overtime is handed out in order to also mitigate overtime. So those are things we hadn't necessarily done in the past, thinking outside the box. But that's what we need to do to maintain our level of service and to make sure that we live within our means. And again, I can't do this job without all the deputies, the correctional officers, the volunteers, professional staff, and all of you and our partnership with the community. That's how we get this done here in Fresno County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Susan Holt, your Behavioral Health Director and Public Guardian. Chairman Mendez, thank you to yourself and members of the board and CAO Nerlin for the opportunity to present our budget today. We will keep it brief. 11 minutes was the going record. We are here to review the overview of our total appropriations, which includes $520,144,143. And you'll see that is very close to our total revenues, coming in at $519,534,735. The figure below that you see is our net county cost. This figure of $609,408 has been flat for 10 years. We have worked really hard to support the county in keeping net county cost as low as possible. And so although it does not cover anywhere near our expenditures, we have been able as a department to utilize other revenue to support functions of the Public Guardian's Office. You'll see a percent change of 9%. This is largely due to fee-for-service implications. In 2023, the state implemented behavioral health payment reform, which converted most of the Medi-Cal services that we provide to a fee-for-service structure, incentivizing counties and their network of contracted providers to deliver more care. And so we have done that successfully. And so that is a substantial portion of that increase that you see, as well as a few prior negotiated staff increases. Speaking of staff, we do have a net increase recommended for one additional position for the Department of Behavioral Health. This is to support actually our colleagues in the probation department with the youth who are incarcerated for longer durations, including older youth because of juvenile justice reform. There's a great need to have a dedicated clinical resource to support those youth and young adults. And after consultation with Chief Haynes, we decided to support them by having that position allocated in our department, but working deeply into the juvenile justice campus, embedded in probation's workflows. But we are supporting that position in our department through revenue that Chief Haynes and his team will provide to us. Next, we'll talk briefly a little bit about the impacts, challenges, and goals. We have a lot going on in behavioral health, lots of statewide reforms. First, you may recall on Proposition 1, the voters approved. There is a radical change, monumental changes to the Mental Health Services Act. The Mental Health Services Act is that 1% personal income tax of every dollar over $1 million. The changes of Prop 1 for the Behavioral Health Services Act rename it. It includes substance use disorders now, in addition to mental health care, but it's much deeper and broader than simply the money of that 1% revenue. There is significant regulatory changes, data reporting changes, stakeholder engagement changes. All of this will go officially live July 1. We are using this year for deep preparation. There is an integrated plan that our CAO will have to sign off on by the end of March of 2026, and then we will be before your board before the end of June for your board to consider and approve the new integrated plan for BHSA. The bright side, as I mentioned, with the CalAIM payment reform changes, we have seen an increase in services. The total hours in 24-25 of direct Medi-Cal claimable care increased by 10% last fiscal year. We're really proud of that. And then we have a lot of impacts of pending legislation. At the beginning of today's hearings, the County Administrative Office talked about some of the federal budget impacts. Most of that will impact us in 26-27 fiscal year, but we are preparing now, doing the analysis of what that actual loss to us could entail. For example, reductions to the federal Medicaid assistance percentage, what we call FMAP, could potentially impact our department with a reduction of $7 to $8 million next fiscal year. So we're continuing that deep analysis to prepare for how we would provide those services. Keep in mind, Welfare and Institution Code 17,000 requires us to provide care as a safety net, irrespective of funding source for persons who are indigent. As our board is aware, we are relocating our inpatient services off of the UMC campus over to our Heritage campus at Shields and Millbrook. We're wrapping up the psychiatric health facility construction now and hope to, by the end of the year, maybe early January, conclude the Crisis Stabilization Center construction. So those relocations are imminent. And we have, you heard earlier, through our justice partners about Proposition 36. Proposition 36 also includes treatment mandated felonies. So for those individuals, the proposition was silent on who is responsible to provide that treatment. Most across the state assume that's county behavioral health agencies. The budget at the state level did include a one-time funding of $50 million for the entire state of California behavioral health system, but we have no guidance yet on how those one-time funds will roll out. Certainly, they're not sustainable as one-time funds, so we will be very strategic in how we utilize those to prepare for more sustainable revenue. And then lastly, it seems to be the theme of the day, workforce challenges. Our behavioral health department is not unique in that, but I will say that there is a statewide, industry-wide challenge in the behavioral health workforce. If you think about the clinicians that I know who work in the private practice setting, they turn away clients every single day who have cash in their hand ready to pay. They'll turn folks away because they're full. There's a huge demand for behavioral health care, both mental health treatment as well as substance use disorder treatment. So although we are very grateful for the highly competitive wages that your board has set for our care providers, we are at or near best in the valley for some positions. It is simply a market force challenge across the state. In Proposition 1, the state is taking 3% of BHSA dollars off the top to invest in statewide workforce initiatives to try to expand the behavioral health workforce. The challenge with that is we don't have local control of those dollars anymore, so we are subject to the state's ideas to expand the workforce. With that, I'll pause there and see if your board has any questions.
Got any? You want to go first this time?
I'll go first. We'll let the psychologist go second. That's one time in this case. Susan, I just want to thank you for the work that you and your department does. I think, being the new guy over here at the county, your department really touches a lot of those important issues in our community. And it showed in the conversations we've been having with the city on working on an MOU agreement with the homeless population and the crisis that we have here locally. And I don't think a lot of our residents really understand that about our behavioral health department. I just want to thank you and your team for the work that you guys have been doing here in Fresno County. And anything we can do to support, I'm open to hearing any initiatives. Your department's very creative, innovative, and I know you network quite a bit. But just want to publicly thank you for the work that you've been doing.
Thank you, Supervisor Chavez. We have a great team, so thank you for acknowledging them. I was remiss in not sharing with you all that with me today at the table before you is our division manager who oversees finance and public guardian, Mr. Sean Patterson. Also present here is our deputy director, Mary Ann Lee, in the room. She oversees our administrative services. And in terms of what the board could do, we did not request your support to add positions for DBH this fiscal year, aside from the one for probation that I mentioned. We know that with Proposition 1 BHSA implementation looming, There will be some things that we may have to recommend to sunset that our department does that we will no longer have revenue in 26-27 fiscal year to do. We didn't feel that it would be prudent to add positions now, knowing that we might have other work we have to sunset. So we are in that deep analysis now. I do anticipate sometime this fiscal year returning to your board with a mid-year position adjustment request. Of course, as a subvented department, there would be no impacts to county net county cost because we utilize our state realignment, BHSA, and other funds. But we didn't want to ask for positions until we were 100% sure what else we were going to have to stop doing.
Excellent.
Okay, go ahead, Gary.
I too want to commend you, Susan, for all the work that you do, staying on top of all the regulations that are involved. It's amazing that you have to deal with all of that, but appreciate what you do and all of the people who are working in your department. Just a couple of questions. Are you working with the city of Fresno regarding homeless issues and people who have the mental health issues? And if so, how?
So excellent question, Supervisor Bredefeld. So we work closely with the County Administrative Office, Mr. Nerland, and I know she's back here, Deputy CAO Amina Flores-Becker. We work very closely through a couple of avenues. Number one, for encampment cleanup, we have a contractor provider that is under the Department of Behavioral Health that does homeless outreach, and through those coordinated efforts of the County Administrative Office, that team gets deployed to do outreach to make sure that folks are getting connected to care wherever possible. The other service that we have is available broader than the homeless population, but often utilized in the homeless population. That's our mobile crisis team. So we are very mindful that we do not want to burden our law enforcement partners with behavioral health crisis unless it is not safe for our team to go out. So through the mobile crisis line, when the screening determines that it's safe for a clinician and a case manager to go out to assess someone's crisis, we deploy that team out, including in circumstances where the person might be unhoused. In addition to that, we do work through the Fresno Madera Continuum of Care, helping persons access our inventory of behavioral health permanent supportive housing units. Whenever those units are precious, there's not always vacancies, but whenever we have a vacancy, we make sure to prioritize those persons experiencing chronic homelessness with severe mental illness into those units. Just a few examples.
Does the city of Fresno make referrals to you themselves?
So through the coordinated efforts, we receive referrals from a variety of sources. One thing I did not mention about our partnership with the City of Fresno, which I'm happy to take a moment to share, is that we also have City of Fresno Crisis Intervention Team officers, and we actually house them with a facility use agreement that your board has approved at no cost to the city. We house them in my department at our Health and Wellness Center on Dakota between Fresno Street and Blackstone. And we collaborate with them with clinical case management to come alongside post-crisis, including persons experiencing homelessness, so that we can prevent further escalation into crisis. So that's another way that we receive referrals directly from the city.
Okay, and then you have, it says 8,000 substance use, 8,000 people have been treated in substance use.
Medi-Cal claims.
Okay. Your substance use treatment programs, you have a number of them, one specific program. How's that working?
We have a number of them. So the American Society of Addiction Medicine, we call that acronym ASAM because we pronounce all of our acronyms in government. There are different levels of care pending the clinical assessment of need. Those range from early intervention, outpatient, all the way up through residential treatment. Some for decades called that inpatient care. Inpatient SUD is actually a medical setting, which is outside of our purview, but we do have residential capacity. We do anticipate expansion of all levels of care under substance use disorder, not just because of the fee-for-service environment, which affords us the ability to expand our network of care, but we do anticipate with the implementation of SB 43, which is the expansion of grave disability criteria to include standalone substance use disorder. Although those persons may not be able to be involuntarily detained in residential settings, we do anticipate a number of individuals would be increasing in their motivation to access voluntary care, including residential and outpatient services. We're also one of the highest in the state with access to evidence-based medication assisted treatment, MAT. So we are making sure that we are expanding access to MAT. You heard our justice partners talk about the opioid crisis, and we want to make sure that we have, for everyone who would benefit from that medication-assisted treatment, that they have easy access to get that.
Right now, all you provide is outpatient, nothing is
That's-
inpatient.
No, sir. We provide the residential.
Oh, you are?
We provide residential through contracts. Most of our network, let me back up. I think our board is aware, our primary role as a behavioral health department is that we're a health insurance plan. So we operate a vast network that includes county-operated care and even more contracted care. So we have providers you might be familiar with, such as West Care, who operate residential treatment programs along with outpatient treatment programs. So we do include the entire continuum of SUD treatment.
Okay. Do you know how many people we've treated in a year regarding substance use?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be exact. I'm just curious roughly how many we're treating.
Yes, if you give me one moment, I will get that for you. Sean, is it my green or my red? Oh, service profile. I found it on my own. Thank you, Sean. So for our service profile, we served, actually, let me pitch to Sean on the SUD treatment, Sean. I have total distinct clients not broken out by SUD and mental health. Do you have that for us?
I don't have that broken out today, but that's easily attained. I can get that to you.
Okay, there's no problem. You can give them to me later. And do you know if they're referring from the needle crack pipe program? Are they sending people to you?
So we don't have a data marker to specifically identify that community-based program as a referral source. We do anticipate moving forward with the Behavioral Health Services Act and the expanded data collection requirements that demarcations for specific community-based referrals is likely to be in our future, but we don't currently track it at specific entity referral.
And then lastly, why do you have so many unlicensed mental health clinicians as opposed to licensed?
You are singing something I want to speak to. We have a very industry-wide important challenge to talk about. I started as an unlicensed mental health clinician myself back in a year we don't want to necessarily talk about. It was a while ago. The industry, let me slow down. I get passionate about this topic. Who we serve in the county of Fresno is the most complex population of needs. We're serving persons with chronic and persistent serious mental illness. Many of those have diagnoses you're familiar with, such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And on the substance use disorder side, we are the Medi-Cal provider, so we're serving folks who have all different levels of addiction, also experiencing poverty, often multi-generational poverty. That's a different gig, if you will, than sitting in an office, writing your own schedule for who you want to see that week. It is the most noble and most deserving position to work in the public sector, but it's tough to recruit to. We have invested millions of dollars in training clinicians and evidence-based practices, and then we struggle to recruit them, or to retain them, because they can write their own ticket in this day and age. If you think about pre-pandemic, I promise I'm getting to the answer to your specific question. We had the lowest per capita behavioral health professionals, not just county behavioral health professionals, but per capita. The Central Valley had the lowest per capita, tied with Inland Empire. That was before the pandemic, and we all know from the pandemic, the need for behavioral health care just expanded exponentially, and we're still kind of at the bottom in terms of just our region, licensed behavioral health clinicians.
Okay.
So thus, the job is hard.
Yeah.
In spite of the great pay that our board has supported, it's really tough work, and there's just not enough licensed professionals, so we grow our own.
And
We hope
these
that
are interns being trained?
they
pretty
are
much?
registered associates, what we used to call interns. The board has changed it to associates. And so we hope to train our own, grow them, and we know many of them have that servant's heart, and promote up within our department to become senior licensed clinicians, mentoring others, and then clinical supervisors as well.
Thanks for everything you do, Susan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Sorry for the long-winded answer.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay, Nathan.
Yeah, so you mentioned Prop 1 and how with the passage of Prop 1, how it will impact some of our funding. And I think we're losing about $6 million. Is that correct?
So our preliminary estimate, Supervisor, I apologize, we haven't updated you since then. Preliminarily, we thought it would be about $6 million, but because what we now know is currently know as MHSA, soon to be BHSA, it's that 1% tax in every dollar over $1 million personal income. It's 5 times more volatile than state income, state sales tax. So current projections for next fiscal year is about $2 million less.
Well, that's good news in a way. $2 million. And then also looking at Medi-Cal reimbursement. A lot of the work that you do, there's reimbursement from Medi-Cal. So with the changes in the big beautiful bill, I don't think there's any impact this fiscal year that we're entering into, but in the next 2 to 3 years, we could see some changes. I think CalFresh gets hit first, and that will take effect next fiscal year. But with Medi-Cal, can you speak a little bit to that? Because there's some additional reporting requirements, and then who's eligible for reimbursement is, that's going to change too.
Yes, many changes ahead in fiscal year 26-27. So first of all, the challenge for us is, I mentioned earlier, the FMAP. So if the FMAP for the Medicaid expansion population reduces for some persons that we serve from 90%, 90 cents on the dollar, if you will, down to 50%, that's a pretty significant hit for us. We have to make up the difference for match. So for Medi-Cal claiming, we pony up the match, and then we can draw down that federal dollar. So the higher the FMAP, that better deal that we're getting. The challenge is that the care requirements don't go away. So if we lose FMAP, we have to come up with more match, which for us predominantly means realignment, which is flat right now and anticipated to continue to be flat. Realignment, we kind of call it the R word in our department because everybody is talking about what are we going to do with different programs? Are we going to have to sunset things? And they say, well, what about realignment? And I say, well, what about realignment? I've got realignment funding the Public Guardian's Office. We're funding a little bit of the jail medical services. We want to be a really good team player here in the county. But that dollar is not stretching. That dollar is not expanding. So we have to do more with less. We are anticipating that with the eligibility populations as well, because we are a safety net provider, when someone is having a psychiatric emergency, let's say there's an individual, to pull Supervisor Bredefeld's example of persons experiencing homelessness, if someone is symptomatic on the street, we're going to need to get them to a hospital, and it doesn't matter what their status is in terms of their immigration status, Medi-Cal status, commercial insurance. We have to get them safe, and we have to protect them and the public, as well as make sure that we can get them into care. And we have to do that irrespective of how much money is available to us. So we're working to maximize Medi-Cal claiming. We're mapping everything right now to prepare for BHSA implementation. We will, unfortunately, have some programs that we will be recommending to sunset. Most of those are going to be in our behavioral health services revenue pot that we will have the least amount of funds in. So there's no Behavioral Health Services Act prevention dollars anymore. So we're going to have to make some hard decisions, present your board with some options in that integrated plan, because we have to preserve that realignment to prepare for the 26-27 changes ahead with the potential reductions.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and unfortunately, we can't expect logic from a very illogical, what you actually work on, so.
Yeah. One thing I didn't say that it is, to your logic comment, part of our funding comes through vehicle license fees. People buy more cars when the times are great. So when times are rough, people spend less money and our need increases. So we get less revenue at a time when we have more people accessing our system of care. So
Isn't the state of California brilliant?
I'm going to defer comment on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chairman, members of the board, and Susan, our communication director, just pointed out to me that, and Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, but in our annual report this year, it indicates 35,000 community members served, but 8,000 of those receiving substance abuse disorder treatment. So.
Thank you, CAO Nerlin, for having my back on my own data. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that information.
Thank you.
Good morning, Board. Joe Prado, Interim Director for Fresno County Department of Public Health, and I really appreciate this opportunity to come before you to speak about our department's budget and just appreciate all the staff time that kind of went into in presenting you a balanced budget here. So to start here, just to looking at the total appropriations, you see at $144,154,327, that is a 15% increase. What we did different this year is we're actually budgeting all the jail medical services costs in this budget org as well. So it just increased transparency. It was previously budgeted in a different org. We just moved those costs into this org here. And then for our revenue, you'll see $138,116,020. That's a 13% increase. That is not by mistake. That is a lot of work going in from our staff to find new revenue sources. Later in the presentation, I'll speak to the reductions we experience at a state and federal level, and this is new revenue we've been able to go out and actually obtain those dollars there. And then on the net county costs, you'll see a $6 million net county cost, an increase of 101%. That is your board's direction. This is the animal services contract. All those costs there are in this department. We manage that program here. So all of our net county costs is associated with animal control services. And then as we move on to the full-time employees, you'll see a net reduction of 28 employees. This is actually bringing us back to pre-COVID days. So we actually have 408 employees established going into the COVID response. We are now bringing the department back to pre-COVID staffing levels. And on the next slide, we'll go through impacts and challenges. I spoke a little bit about those state and federal reductions. The federal reductions were quick, they were swift, but our department was preparing for these already. Through our previous leadership with David Lucchini as director, we developed a 5-year projection of this department, and we saw, and I think your board has heard this, the COVID cliff coming, and so we actually started reducing our resources or our contracts incrementally, and so that's what you saw. We didn't have to lay anybody off during these state and federal reduction cuts because we were preparing for these reductions in revenue here. The other reduction we saw was in the emergency preparedness program and our nutrition education and obesity prevention program. And so we actually had 8 field staff in these programs here. But just a testament to our team, our staff, our management team, they came together. We found jobs for all 8 individuals within the department. We have had a freeze in our department since April of this year. And so that freeze helped give us the room and the space. So when these funding cuts happen, we're able to keep people employed and in other roles within the department. And then the jail medical services contract, you've heard everybody say that today. That's been like a topic all around. Well, just to let you know, we share 42% of that cost of jail medical. So that is that's one thing that our department contributes as part of our contribution to the county there, 42% of those there. You know, some of our challenges as we think about these lost positions, the 28 that's proposed for your board's consideration in this budget round, in the 13 we cut previously and last, is just reducing core public health capacity. And so, but we're monitoring that. Being back to pre-COVID levels, we're still able to maintain some of those really key parts of responding to any type of communicable disease event, any type of an emergency in our community as well. So we're going to be looking at balancing, working with the Sheriff's Department, the CAO, Behavioral Health on balancing jail medical services. We also have additional costs outside the contract that we pay as well. So looking with them, partnering with them to make sure we can control those costs as much as possible. Something that we want to bring to your attention is the passage with H.R. 1. There is an impact with that. So previously, when the Affordable Care Act was passed, there was a sufficient amount of individuals that were actually eligible for care and insurance. And in California, Medi-Cal pretty much took care of that population. Prior to that, we had a medically indigent services program where we had a contract with community regional medical center, and it was a cap contract at $20 million. They would tell you that back then, yeah, you only paid us 20, but it was actually $80 million worth of costs. But when the Affordable Care Act was passed, we actually, the state restructured health realignment and actually passed another bill to actually restructure some of those funding opportunities. What has happened since then is that we don't see the amount of health realignment we used to. And with the passive as HR1, we are watching closely to see what the state's going to do. That could increase what we are obligated to pay in as a county with the loss of some of those dollars there. So we're watching that closely. We'll be working with the CAO, our legislative folks, to see what that looks like. But we still want to bring that to your attention, that may be an additional program we might have to manage, and we will definitely need to ask Sacramento for some significant dollars to be able to manage that state program. And then just our goals throughout the year, there is every indication there's going to be additional cuts to public health from the federal level. We're hearing that from HHS and other contacts. So we are keeping our vacancy level the way it is today. So before your board is 28 vacant positions cut. We have an additional approximately 39 positions on the books after that. We just need to wait to see what happens at the federal and state level to give us the flexibility to restructure the department to meet the county's critical needs. And so as we think about that, not only mandated services, but some of those key public health safety services that we provide with jail medical services, environmental health, and our emergency services program there. And so, strict and efficiency and sustainability planning for long-term stability. Every division within our department is really evaluating its workflow, its processes, and we're evaluating who charges us dollars and making sure we're collecting money from the state on a timely basis. Seems something very basic and generic, but the state sometimes doesn't pay on time. And so we're actually, with the state, consistently making sure that they are reimbursing us on a timely basis. And so that is going to be something I think of challenge for public health department is the state creates contracts that really exceeds what they are giving us dollars for. So our department is pushing back to the state to really give more dollars or adjust that scope of work as well. So as we kind of go through these negotiations, definitely looking for your board support in that and the CAO support as we go through these evaluations of each and every state contract that we bring before your board. And that concludes my presentation and available for any questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Director Prado. We've had an opportunity to work and trying to kind of triage a lot of the cuts that you mentioned. Some people call it HR1. I'm going to call it the big ugly bill. As we heard from our CAO, is going to cut over $1 trillion over the 10 years. And then we're also getting hit, but I'm going to call it the small ugly bill from the state that also had some cuts. So my question is with regards to and I think you hit the nail on the head, the public health infrastructure that the department has built, and credit to my colleagues, we're doing this post-COVID. How are we going to maintain that? Because I think that data is going to help guide this board in the next couple of years to regards with how do we prioritize these services. And for the folks that don't know, I think our public health department built a great infrastructure database system that really outlines all the folks we're serving, more importantly, what their conditions are and challenges that they have in their lives.
Yeah. No, thank you, Supervisor Chavez, for that question. What's being handed out and what you have on the board is our 6 key areas of appropriations. So in our department, we manage approximately 70 different programs. We're not getting into details of 70 programs, but we rolled them up for you, and we broke them up in 2 different areas, public safety and health and wellness. So on the left-hand side, you see environmental health. Those are our restaurant inspectors. They're our hazardous waste materials teams there, our jail medical services that we contribute to, our emergency services, and communicable disease control. On the right-hand side, our health and wellness, you'll see direct health services, and you'll see prevention and wellness as well. So as we start navigating all these different cuts, we're going to want to make sure we're able to maintain public safety at some appropriate funding level and being able to respond to that. Right now, we are finishing up our strategic planning. We've gotten great input from our employees, from our community stakeholders, and guess what? Some of the things that is rising to the top: emergency preparedness, access to healthcare, and data analysis. Our community has an expectation that the public health department can do data analysis, like you've mentioned, Supervisor Chavez, and that looks like your board's investment in the county information exchange system to where we're able to see when are we sharing clients. So you're hearing from the human services departments, but also probation. There's a lot of us that invest in some community-based organization contracts, and when are these clients actually being duplicated in these contracts? We don't know because there's like over 50 contracts there, and there's not one database that talks to the other database. Our goal with the County Information Exchange is really to be able to input all those clients into one database and see where the duplication is and to better allocate those resources and at the same time document those interventions. What interventions are actually working? So whether you've got $50 million or $100 million, which one is actually producing better outcomes? So that's a sense of our information exchange, how we'll be able to really support the county overall's goal and being able to move that forward.
Gary, I'm good. Nathan? Okay, thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board, and CEO Sonia Bugay, Department of Social Services, and with me at the dais is Bruna Chavez, our Deputy over Finance and Operations. And I want to start by giving you just a few brief overview of DSS budget and then a few impacts of HR 1. So starting with, while DSS in the budget book has 9 different budget orgs, really want to highlight our 5610, our main operations org, which is where majority of our staff and operations are actually budgeted. So overall, our budget is just under $4.7 million smaller this upcoming year, compared to the prior year. And overall, we have a net decrease of 4 positions due to operational need and changes in the workload. The detail behind that is in your budget book. We're adding 10 positions, we're deleting 10 positions, adding 6 to meet different operational needs and have a decrease of 4 positions. If we can move to the next slide. I just want to briefly highlight that in DSS budget, we're just slightly over $1 billion operation for the budgeted general fund orgs that also do not represent all CalFresh benefits and full in-home supportive services benefits that are transacted by our department but are technically not reflected in the PeopleSoft. So that adds another $1.4 billion in total economic impact for our department. Overall, more than half of our budget is actually in the benefit issuances to the public. So foster care payments, aid to adoptions, CalWorks grants, that's over $500 million in our budget, and the rest is really for operations. So I will just go briefly to the next slide over the impacts in our main operational budget. With the state budget being the way it is, and our realignment revenues for sales tax not meeting base for 2 straight years, the current budget for DSS does not reflect any of the federal changes, but it does reflect state budget impacts and declining revenues overall, as well as increases in costs. And really, challenges and increases of costs were probably the biggest impact to our budget. So just overall impacts we have in the current year, recommending a 10% vacancy rate as opposed to 6.5% from previous year, which is keeping additional 90 positions vacant. We have about $9 million in decreases in contracts for various services across different operations. And probably the most significant is reduction in positions. Few things that are kind of happening for us that are challenges for the upcoming year is implementing all of the changes due to HR 1 and state budget reaction from that, as well as adapting to our local realignment changes. Our sales tax really staying flat or declining slightly is how we meet the match for majority of our programs, and that with increasing costs is something we're going to have to grapple with the next couple of years. Finally, the goals for next year, in addition to administering our programs and dealing with HR1, probably the biggest thing that's happening in our department is transition of child welfare case management systems to a new care system. We're one of the five pilot counties. The entire state is transitioning next year. Fresno County will be one of the 5 pilot counties, and that transition is happening in August of '26. The rest of the state is coming on board 2 months later. So for our department, while HR1 is challenging, I do think one of our biggest to-dos will be implementation of CARES, which is a replacement of the child welfare system that we've had for 20 years. So I want to just quickly touch on HR1. HR1, just from a perspective of Medicaid and SNAP, HR1 covers a lot of different program areas, but in our department, SNAP, which is food stamps, and Medicaid, which is Medi-Cal, the provisions of HR1 is really going to do 4 different things. One, there's a reduction of populations who are eligible for benefits, so that's redoing eligibility for 500,000 people that are in our county that are on Medicaid, and about 250,000 are on SNAP. We are not a billing department, but certainly we're the department that does all the eligibility pieces. So reduction in eligibility is kind of number one impact. Reduction of level of benefits. So while people may still be eligible, their number of benefits may be changing for individuals. And then 2 other impacts for us is increase in administrative complexity. So what HR1 does in a number of our programs is changes the frequency of reporting, changes how eligibility is determined, which in our end translates to more work. And the final impact is really reduction in revenues or cost shifts to the counties and the state. In CalFresh, which has been a program that has existed for, past 4 decades, federal government has been covering 50%. That sharing ratio is going to change to half of that, to 25%. That automatically changes county and state share. Same thing will be happening in Medicaid. So over the next 2 slides, I just want to briefly show you the timelines for HR1 first for CalFresh. Nothing has happened yet, even though some things have taken effect July 4th. We're still waiting on detailed state and federal direction before some of these impacts take effect. And then there's, over the course of the bill for the next couple of years, where there will be additional changes happening. I do think the biggest work for us this upcoming year is really prepping for 26-27. Similar thing is, if you can go to the next slide, similar thing is happening for Medicaid. For the most part, Medicaid changes have not taken impact yet. The number of changes like work requirements, changes in costs and sharing ratios are really happening in the next 2 fiscal years. So in the final slide, just really giving you some of the high-level impacts for Fresno County populations. These are estimates based on state percentages and state estimates for the statewide population, how it would reflect on population of Fresno County. I do think as this bill gets implemented, as we get detailed regulations across the board, we will know what ultimate impacts of this bill will be on both CalFresh and Medicaid population in our county. And with that, I will stop and give you a chance to ask questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to our director. And first of all, thank you to you and your amazing team. And I think when Supervisor Butterfield and I toured your facility, we got a chance to see how big the workload is for you and your team out there on buildings 1 through 5. And I think we're going to need more of your help and support as we're implementing the federal requirements and some of the state challenges, and particularly with our foster kids, as you mentioned. Our team over there has done an amazing job. I think they lead with their heart, and I think they take care of our kids. I've seen that firsthand, not just in the buildings, but out in the community. Had a chance to attend your family reunification event that hopefully my colleagues can make it in December. I think is the next event. I do have some questions with regards to what the implementation of this will look like for our residents. You did reference a couple of work requirements. Who is eligible now that did not have to participate in these work requirements that will now have to participate in the work requirements?
So we actually have work requirements reflected in both programs. So if you can back up to food stamp slide. So I'll start with CalFresh because those work requirements start first. We have had in statute work requirements for CalFresh population for a couple of decades. However, for the past 10 years or so, we actually have not, we have been under a waiver, and those have not been implemented at all. Starting, what we anticipated will be January of '26. Work requirements for CalFresh will come on board. Anyone who is technically an able-bodied adult without a dependent, and without dependent previously meant no children younger than 18. HR 1 changed that to no children younger than 14. So individuals 18 to 64 without children younger than 14 would be subject to work requirements. Now, able-bodied adults is a very general term, so that's part of where additional regulations are coming in. How state actually fully defines that. Federal government needs to issue regulations to the state. State will issue regulations to us, and then we'll implement that. What it really does mean is that people will have to prove that they're employed 80 hours, what we anticipate to be 80 hours a month, or are participating in eligible work requirements prior to them being eligible to food stamps. So it's a new workload to us. It's a new requirement for the population we serve in order to maintain their food stamp eligibility.
And I think the previous age was 55 years old was the max. Now it's going all the way up to 62 or 64.
To 64, and previously it was capped at 55. No, our population, though, has not been experiencing that at all because we have been under a waiver. The other new work requirements will also Medicaid. So Medicaid work requirements, if you go to the next slide, actually will be starting in January 27. So up to this point, Medicaid program has never had in statute work requirements. What those will look like will take us a little bit to learn from, so there's no previous regulation. That implementation will be national, and we'll be learning over the next year or so what that really means.
When do we expect to have a little better picture of the state taking out and actually adopting that able-bodied? Because I think there's a lot of confusion out there with residents. Is it somebody that's on the milder spectrum of autism? Is it somebody that is still able-bodied but has some kind of a disability? I think that's the question I've gotten that I haven't been able to answer, quite frankly.
Yeah. So we're waiting for the state. FNS has Food Stamp and Nutrition Service, which is a federal regulatory agency that works with CDSS, our State Department of Social Services, has actually not issued those regulations yet. My last understanding is that they're supposed to issue that by the end of September. So our systems and our county, all the counties, including us with the state, will implement by beginning of January. We're currently under a federal waiver through January, so I'm anticipating that by January we will actually be implementing new regulations.
So once we get those, obviously we'll disseminate those out to our residents and go through that conversation. Okay, I want to just briefly touch on that issue. I think it's the one you referenced on here, Director, the 4 positions that are being decreased. I think these are the appeal specialists, folks, and for people that don't understand that, it's the people that, for whatever reason, we deemed that they were not eligible, or maybe the amount was not eligible for certain services. They have a right to appeal. These are the folks that take that information and then make a decision, correct?
Yes, so because most of our services are entitlement based, if we deny anyone for benefits, people have a right to appeal that decision by an eligibility worker. That appeal is filed through our department, and we can resolve it appeals hearing, or people are entitled to be in front of an administrative law judge. Our appeals specialists either resolve pre-hearing resolutions, or are actually the ones writing a position statement and representing sort of an independent party, representing the case in front of an administrative law judge.
And this is across all services, right? SNAP, Medicaid, veteran services, whatever county services provide, they have a right to appeal?
They do, not for veteran services, but for SNAP, for Medicaid, CalWorks, basically state and federal programs that we administer, Title 4E, IHSS, any program that we administer that has state and federal funding.
And have we seen a decrease in those appeals recently?
Actually, the number of hearings are up. So there is they've almost doubled in the past year and a half. What we have done over the past 3 years is change a lot of our administrative processes to be more effective in resolving the appeals. We've also done a lot more pre-appeal hearing resolutions. So what staff are keeping up with is higher, but since for couple of different reasons. One, due to suspension of discontinuing people on Medicaid. For 3 years, nobody was getting discontinued. Once that restarted, the number of hearings for Medicaid restarted. Similar things for CalFresh. So the actual hearings aren't down. We are more effective in addressing and we're more productive. So the reduction in positions was really based on our capacity to keep up with the work and changes in our administrative processes.
The only two concerns I have with this, direction is with HR1 coming down the pipeline and a lot of the unknowns and the increased amount of folks we're going to have go through our services and then have to either dispute whether they satisfied the work requirement or not, and providing a venue for people to appeal. I don't want to be in the space where we're not fulfilling that requirement and giving people that, like we just talked about, due process and the appeal process, and then having ambulance chasers say, hey, I'm going to advocate for you if, there's a certain amount of funds that they get from this or from clients. And then the second piece of it is we've seen the numbers increase. Are we seeing an increase in eligibility? Because I think you mentioned you wanted to float those positions to eligibility workers. Is that what we're seeing?
So we have the challenge in this budget picture for us has been how do we keep up with an increasing workload across the board with increasing costs and overall either decreasing or flat revenue? That having to keep additional 90 vacancies with our various programs, what our budget represents is about 150 different funding sources, some which are up, some which are down. Part of this is really looking at, but not basing every decision based only on money, but really looking at every operation and how do we increase productivity, how do we change, how do we approach our jobs in order to keep and maximize the service with public and maintain state and federal accuracy rates, and at the same time meet the budget needs. So from our eligibility perspective for both intake and our ongoing process, we have been under different corrective action plans. We're out of those now. But in order to keep up, we had actually had to, this past several months, restrict access to the public. We closed our, as you may recall, back in March or April, we closed our call center every Wednesday in order to keep up with our eligibility work. So with everything that's coming, what we're really seeing is that our state revenue will be reduced, our federal revenue will be reduced, and workload on our eligibility staff is going to be higher. And it's actually high right now. So while I certainly cannot predict what will happen with appeals, and I have very similar worries, you can make an argument that some of it will go down. You can really make an argument and some of it will go up. We're basing our decisions on the position of how we're managing the workload at the moment. So my commitment is if our need between eligibility and appeals changes, that we would be coming back to your board and adjusting the positions other way around. I do believe how we've adjusted our processes, that if the workload stays at this higher level of appeals hearings, that we can actually keep up with that without sacrificing service to the public, and at the same time shift the position to address some of the higher level eligibility work that's happening right now.
And it's like a balancing act, right? Because you want to get your folks in with eligibility, but I do anticipate a lot of additional folks coming in applying for services. The other issue, and this might not be something that was done traditionally, but is legal counsel involved in signing off or scrutinizing some of these appeals that could potentially go into the court, whether it's federal court or state court, or is there no legal counsel involvement in that?
There's no legal counsel involved in appeals. The appeal, it's really our staff representing it, and then administrative law judge deciding whether we were right or not. Part of the reason I keep calling it trial, it's really a hearing. Pre-hearing resolutions is sometimes it's really our staff not following policies right. So we can make administrative errors. Sometimes we're right and people just don't want to believe they're not eligible. As our accuracy rates have improved, and sometimes it's really the interpretation of Fresno County's interpretation of state and federal regulations. So as our accuracy rates have improved, as our knowledge across the board has improved, so has our number of appeals hearings and how quickly we resolve them. So there's many factors in prepping for that appeals hearings. It it is an incredibly valuable position, and actually the staff are incredibly good. They are knowledgeable across our programs, and how they represent the department, some of their feedback helps improve some of our existing policies and procedures. So some of it, what you're seeing, is really a recommendation that's reflective of becoming more effective and more efficient in doing this work.
No, and I have full confidence in you and your leadership. I want to make sure we don't get caught in a situation where we're having these risks and liability and exposure coming down the pipeline with all of the unknowns that we have. But quite frankly, I'm a little bit nervous about legal counsel not signing off on these. I'll wrap it up there, but I would like to see, out of all of these appeals that we've had, how many of them have actually ended up in court? I'd like to just get a snapshot of what those figures look like. We don't have to do that right now. You could pull those later. Just wanted to flag that for the conversation. Thank you.
Okay, Nathan, you have anything? Okay, Gary?
I'll be very quick. On the HR1 impact to SNAP, it says that 3,600 individuals may no longer be eligible to receive benefits due to their immigration status. Is that correct?
That is currently our estimate. So there are certain individuals that from 1996 to today have been eligible. So there are certain parolees and refugee populations that will no longer be eligible. That's our estimate based on current population. We still have not gotten full clarification from the federal government or from the state government which particular refugees will not be eligible. But it really is very technical, so they're all on some kind of a legal status in the U.S. Nothing has changed yet, but HR1 changes the eligibility to basically limit it to citizens and legal permanent residents, and only a couple of different refugee populations. This is our best estimate of the impact.
So it may be that 3,600 people may lose their ability to access the benefit they have now because they're not here legally.
No, they're here legally.
They're here legally?
They're here legally. So it is somebody who is here legally but is on a temporary protective status,
Okay,
or
I
somebody
gotcha.
who is a refugee that currently is eligible, that they will no longer be eligible. So this CalFresh has never been issued to people who are not documented.
Okay, I got you. And then I want to know about Adult Protective Services and Child Welfare Service, used to be CPS. Do you have all the resources you need? Because that's always been an issue. Certainly was an issue when I was a clinician and dealing with CPS. Do you feel like you have all the resources you need for that, or no?
It feels strange to say yes, but I do want to say yes. So we are probably in the best space we've been in a long time when it comes to our child welfare caseloads. They have been declining and declining significantly. Prevention resources, supportive services, when it comes to our families, there's never enough. And where we are as a department when it comes to number of social workers and support staff, I do think we're in a very good space.
Good, because I just want to make sure that you do feel that way so we can protect children and adults who need it. That's all, Jim.
Yeah, I just got one quick question. You don't have to give a long explanation. And this has to do with fraud. Do you investigate fraud, or is the federal government telling you don't investigate fraud?
We do. We actually have an agreement. We have a little over $2 million agreement with the district attorney's office for investigation of welfare fraud. And we partner with various entities when it comes to any kind of EBT, skimming and scamming, and welfare fraud.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Chairman, Board of Supervisors, CEO Northern. It's a pleasure to be here today to discuss our budget. We're only presenting one of our budget items. That's the park budget. But our total department budget is $540 million with 526 allocated positions. This is a net county-funded department or unit. There's 10 units within our department itself. So there's really not a lot here, but it is something that will get public's attention quickly if you don't mow it or water it. We have about 1,500 acres of grass we have to mow in water quite often. So that's the extent I'll go into that detail. Time is of the essence. I know it's after lunch. The budgeted shortfall in parks was 25%, so we held those positions back. And thank you goes to CEO Nerlin for giving us an early enough heads up where we could hold positions back and not fill them. So we weren't able to take any real hits in parks. The things that really got our attention for not just parks, but other parts of our department, were the internal service costs. ISD charges went down, but general service costs went back up. So we will be coming back to this board with some consideration for our rates across the board, from building, from all our labor rates continued. So fortunately, we're able to maintain about a 15% vacancy rate with our staff working as diligently as they can. I'll turn the presentation over to Bernard right now.
Thank you, Steve. And just real quickly, I wanted to highlight some of the department accomplishments over the past year. On the development side, the department issued over 7,000 building permits, which is really important, the construction valuation of approximately $380 million. The reason why that's important is because once construction is completed and those improvements are occupied, they get on our tax rolls, and that directly results to additional property tax revenue to this county. Earlier was mentioned the significance of a memorandum of understanding or tax sharing agreement that came to your board last year. Over the past year, the department has actually brought 3 of those MOUs for board action. Since 2017, the department has been involved, and as of right now, we have completed 14 of the 15 cities to have those MOUs in places. Another significant milestone is the department's completion of paved roads. Approximately 121 miles was paved over the past year, primarily with department workforces, which is a significant achievement. In addition to bringing outside revenues into the department was awarded approximately $30 million in federal and state planning and infrastructure grants that will be used to improve the safety of the county roadways and bridges, construct sidewalks in our communities, and improve accessibility to students getting to and from school. The department continues to receive recognition for its outstanding work on projects as well as professional recognition. And then as it relates to our road crews, we continue to respond. There was reference earlier about the significant number of natural disasters. Our road crews are very essential to our safety services employees in their ability to respond to these incidents, whether it's a traffic accident or whether it's these natural disasters, floods, fires. Our road crews are an important component to making sure that these roads can get, folks can get to and from safely. And then finally, we did accomplish 4 Prop 218s in terms of our county service areas to bring our fees in line with the cost to operate those. And so that was a huge accomplishment, and I actually skipped one. Recently completed our 6-cycle housing element, which is a mandatory element of our general plan that allows us to come into compliance with the state mandated requirement, as well as bringing to your board 2 community plan updates for Biola and Delray. Steve?
We're here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, I'm actually going to start off with a comment before I let everybody. You know, it's been the thing to say the roads PSI condition, and everybody's, oh yeah, it's 66 or 67. That's a meaningless number, because you probably, I would say at least 10% of our roads, maybe more, you can correct me, are in poor condition that we can't do a layover. We have to spend over $1 million a mile to fix it. Correct or not correct?
That's correct. You want me to talk to the board about the information PCI you were just mentioning?
Yeah, go ahead.
So PCI is a pavement conditional index measurement. It's a visual measurement of roads throughout the county itself, all county maintained roads. Every district has a recap of their PCI in their district, the roads in their district. And for the most part, we're good. There are some roads on the west side that we have to go back and reconstruct. We recently did a presentation at the Measure C committee at COG last week, and we presented some facts to them. And some of those facts were, what do it cost to take the PCI of a particular area, 66 was our number, to 70. It's going to range between $500 million to $1.5 billion because of what Supervisor Mendez just stated. The road itself dictates what the direction it is. You have to build a structural section, you have to remove all the things out, put it back in, and the like. County roads are in fairly reasonable shape. I'm not promoting that we couldn't do better, but we're trying to do that. We did 120 miles this year in the last 2 years in a row. Nobody else does that. Couchman's doesn't even do that kind of volume. And it's all with self-forces and our day labor crews. So our goal is to continue to do that, to get up to 150 and to get up to 200 miles every year.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, just along the lines of the master facility plan, and you're right, Chair Mendez, I think the Measure C conversation is going to be crucial to what you just brought up, but equally as important, our master facility plan and what that will look like. The CAO obviously will work with our public works folks. I like to see a compilation of all of the buildings that the county owns, the needs of what we need to maintain them, but also all the property that we own across the county to get a snapshot for the board to consider. And then more importantly, the energy use that we are currently undergoing for all of our facilities. We know that energy use has skyrocketed, right? The price that we pay on average here from PG&E is about 40% higher than our coastal counterparts. So what are we doing as an entity to try to reduce some of those costs? I know there's a number of solar projects that have now started, that we're materializing, but what would be the long-term plan in addition to our master facility plan work that we're going to be doing?
Yeah, that may be one that I know our COO and General Services Director can speak to more, but I can say this, that one of the things we've been focused on is as Public Works works on a capital project, we're working closer with our General Services Department to make sure, number one, we know the cost to maintain it, but also we're retrofitting our buildings with everything we can do to make sure that it's energy efficient. So that's an ongoing effort, and I want to give credit to General Services for the work that they've done to date. But as you know, some of the buildings that we have that are very old still have work to do. But every new building that we're looking at, the cost of maintaining it is going to be a key part of that project we're looking at.
Just so you know, there's a GIS map available from either Mike or from Raymond showing all our county-owned properties. We spent quite a bit of resources on that, buildings and the like, and then Raymond would be the person to talk to on the square footage of the buildings, because they actually wrote a program that captured all that stuff and determined all the energy costs. And what we do on our vertical build project itself is we come up with a life cycle cost as part of the package. It goes to General Services, and it actually goes to CAO's office, and then to the client to make sure that they can actually afford the building they want to have built.
No, I appreciate that. The ARPA funds that we have been going through, CAO, I know they're directly related to some of the projects we're discussing for Public Works. What's the timeline for us coming back and doing a reconciliation of projects that were not expended or maybe were different amounts and kind of cleaning that up? Is that towards the end of the year, or are we looking at sooner?
Sooner. Well, so departments and everybody that has been given an ARP allocation has been given a clear deadline that they need to be completing their projects and submitting the bills 6 months in advance of the actual deadline, which is the end of 26. And so we know that it's going to take time to reconcile and pay those bills, and so we can come to your board at that time. But we are keeping track of that on a monthly basis, and we're aware now of some that we've reached out to them, and if we don't see the expenditures moving as they should, we'll be coming back to shift those. Our goal is that there's no dollars that need to be sent back. They will stay in Fresno County.
Yeah, Nathan?
So a couple quick questions. CSAs, so a number of county service areas looking at the funded status of CSAs. Are we going to be bringing a number of studies and actions to make sure that rates that are being charged are adequate to keep up with costs?
I think we have 6 in the queue right now, if not more. That information has been submitted to Supervisor Paul Nerden's office. And it's not just the CSAs for utilities, but the CSAs for the roads too. We have 133 of them. We'd like to get rid of all of them, but we're not there yet.
And then Alder Springs Road, that was damaged by the creek fire, and I think there's an effort to go through the rebuild process of that road. Where are we with it? Because I have residents.
We're finalizing the environmental section of that. We're looking for 2026, depending on funding availability. If the feds don't take any money from us or whatever else, we'll be up there doing that. We're scoping the project to smaller than what it really started with because of the environmental concerns and having to build retaining walls. We're penciling at about a $4 or $5 million project right now, Supervisor.
And that is a reconstruct project, correct?
Some of it's overlay. We have to take the ash out of the way to put the base down where the pavement used to be. It's be a combination. The challenges we're going to have is what standard do we build it back to? Grades and slope. You have some grades up there well above 20%, which are not conforming to CAL FIRE's or Fresno County Fire Protection standards.
Some of the residents, they're not able to build their homes back until that road gets built. And as you know, there's a 3-year window where when there's an insurance payout, you have 3 years to build your home back. If you don't do it, you got to pay taxes on the money that you were given from the insurance company. So I know that we've exceeded that 3-year window already, but a lot of residents are just wanting to know what's the county going to do with that road. So it's very important to get that done.
The challenge we had, that subdivision, Alder Springs, was built back at the turn of the century. There was no boundary of anything. So we did a record of survey, created a boundary, worked with the property owners, worked with the community up there. We're just trying now to carve out the money to be able to set it aside to put that kind of dollar in your district up there.
And the only because Alder Springs Road is a county road, we have to bring it back. So it's got to be a priority.
Legal opinion's already been given to us on that.
Yep. And then finally, Dinky Creek Road. I bring that up just because right now with the Garnet Fire, there's been and still is significant resource on that road, and there's been damage to that road, which is logical because of all the activity. So do we have? Are we keeping an accounting of culverts being crushed? The work that's going to need to be done to bring that road back after the Garnet Fire is
Dinky Creek has the one large culvert bridge we're replacing. The box will probably hit the ground next week. We've already issued the contract to the jock contractor. We pulled back because of the very thing you just described because we can't close the road. There's another project up there where the smoke is, and we're staying out of that too. And wait until the fires guys get that taken care of. We'll deploy 2 jocks up there and get them done.
All right, just tell your constituents, I'm a county supervisor. I've been waiting for a road to get fixed that I drive on every day for 10 years, all right? And I can hear every night when it's quiet, I can hear trucks going through town because they make noises. They hit all the cracks through the road. So
You're right, and the only difference here is there is no road. Residents can't even drive on anything because it's needs to be repaired. And so we have to give them something. I'll take a bumpy road that makes noise, but we just have to give them something so they can rebuild their homes.
We will.
yeah, maybe we'll give them a gravel road. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, how much deferred road maintenance is there in Fresno County right now?
$1.6 billion. That includes
$1.6
billion.
Yeah.
I couldn't give you, if you want me to, I can have it to your office this afternoon, a list of all the roads.
Yeah.
Culverts, striping, signage, and I think the biggest ones that did not include bridges, because bridges are averaging about $5 to $6 million a pop, and we have 585 of them.
Which is the importance of Measure C in passing it
Yes.
For road maintenance. Do we have a program at the county for repairing roads? Or
Yes, we do.
we contract that out?
It's called PMS, Pavement Management System. Currently, what we use is a product called Street Saver. It inventories everything and does reporting out. And we have another program we're trying to even do more work with using technology to assist us. So we run 2 programs. The PMS program in the county of Fresno has been around for about 20 years.
Okay.
We can tell you every road, every segment, when it was last worked on. They've done a really good job in road maintenance and operations.
Okay, and then just the final, the community maintenance district that I've shared with you, I have somebody who also is concerned about the money that was put into the account that's not there, it's supposed to be audited. Is that the same thing that Supervisor
That's
Magic's referring to?
What Supervisor Magic was talking about was a CSA.
Yeah, versus the community
Yours is a maintenance district. There's 6 maintenance districts in the county. Yours was maintenance district number 6. We're waiting for Mr. Sloan's office to give us the legal opinion.
Okay, good. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you for all that you do, Steve.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Big job. So now I'll call for public comment on everything that we've talked about so far.
Good morning. My name is Frances Morrison. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I wanted to give a shout out to the Federal Guardian's Office. I live next to a very elderly gentleman who has Alzheimer's, and he has tremendous wealth and no family members. And I got as many people involved in it as I possibly could, including Adult Protective Services, an awesome detective in the office who since moved to another unit. But I never expected to be in touch for any reason with anybody from the Public Guardian's Office. Those people are incredible. They are very well informed. And I'm convinced that without their help, I could not have gotten help for this. So that's all.
Thank you. Now, is she going to announce each one as we go through?
Yeah, that concludes the first part of our meeting, which is the presenting departments, but at this point, we can move to the rest of the agenda.
Okay.
So we move to item number 2 under General Fund 0001, Agriculture Commissioner Sealer of Weights and Measures, Org 4010, Assessor Recorder, Assessor Org 0420, Auditor Controller Treasurer Tax Collector, Org 0410, Behavioral Health Public Guardian, Org 5630, Board of Supervisors, Org 0110, Child Support Services, Org 5110, Code Enforcement, Org 4620, County Administrative Office, Org 0120, CAO Grants, Org 0122, Alternate Indigent Defense, Org 2875, Countywide Revenues, Org 0415, Contingencies, General Reserves, and Designations, Org 8210, Court Ancillary Services, Org 2838, Grand Jury, Org 2870, Interest and Miscellaneous Expenditures, Org 2540, County Clerk Elections, Org 2850, County Council, Org 0710, District Attorney, Org 2860, District Attorney Grants, Org 2862, Human Resources, Org 1010, General Services Department, Purchasing, Org 0440, Librarian, Org 7515, Probation, Org 3430, Probation Grants, Org 3432, Probation Juvenile Justice Campus, Org 3440, Public Defender, Org 2880, Public Health, Org 5620, County Medical Services, Org 5240, Public Works and Planning, Org 4360, Support Services, Org 4365, Transit Services, Org 4700, Grants, Org 5512, Community Development Block Grant, Org 7205, Parks and Grounds, Org 7910, Sheriff Coroner Public Administrator, Org 3111, Social Services, Org 5610, Aid to Adoptions, Org 6415, Aid to Refugees, Org 6615, CalWorks, Org 6310, Dependent Children Foster Care, Org 6410, General Relief, Org 6645, In-Home Supportive Services, Org 6420, In-Home Supportive Services Public Authority, Org 5611, Veteran Service Office, Org 7110.
Okay, I'm going to ask for public hearing on those items. Is there anyone in the public? Hearing none, I'm going to wait for Gary to come back. Do you guys have any more questions on those? Yeah.
I can, if you want, I can make a motion for approval. I know we can't call the question until Gary's in here. 'cause it
Right.
takes, I think,
Takes 4. That's what I was thinking of when I got up this morning. If I wouldn't have been able to get up, you'd have been shit out of luck.
That is correct.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here. I'll make a motion for approval on that note.
Do you have any comment? Okay. Okay, I'll second that motion. All in favor, so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We'll go to item 3.
We now move to item number 3, Capital Projects Fund 0400, West Annex Jail Orgs 8845, 8849, Jail Improvements Org 8852, Sheriff's Area 2 Substation Org 8853, Agriculture Capital Projects Org 8857, Hall of Records Improvements Org 8861, Clovis Library Org 8863, Reilly Branch Library Org 8865, Parks Org 8867, Central Branch Library Org 8868, Elkhorn Training Facility Org 8869, ARPA Projects Org 8870, 200 West Pontiac Way Improvements Org 8871, DBH Olive Building Org 8872, Selma Branch Library Org 8873.
Okay, is there any public comment on these items? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
Move for approval.
Motion to approve, second. All in favor, so going to say an aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carried.
We now move to item number 4, Debt Service Fund, Fund 0300, Debt Service Org 0301 and 0302.
Okay, is there any public comment on this one? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
Motion approved.
Second.
Get a motion and a second. All in favor, so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes? No, so it passes 4-0.
Now move to item number 5, Internal Service Funds, Human Resources, Fund 1060, Risk Management Org 8925, General Services Department, Fund 1000-Fleet Services Orgs 8910 and 8911, Fund 1035 Security Services Org 8970, Fund 1045 Facility Services Org 8935 and 8936. Office of Information Security, Funds 1020, Office of Information Security Org 8909, Information Technology Services Department, Fund 1020, Information Technology Services Orgs 8905 and 8908, Fund 1020, PeopleSoft Operations Org 8933.
Okay, is there any public comment on those? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
Motion approved.
You get a motion to approve? Second. All in favor, so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
We now move to item number 6, Enterprise Funds, Public Works and Planning, Fund 0701, Resources Org 9015, Disposal Sites Orgs 9020, 9026, 9028, and 9905. Public Works and Planning Fund 0801, Special Districts Administration Org 9140.
Okay, is there any public comment on these items? Hearing none, I'll bring them back to the board.
Motion approved.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you.
We now move to item number 7, Special Revenue Trust Funds, Assessor Recorder Fund 0035, Recorder Org 1048, County Administrative Office Fund 0271, Local Revenue Funds 2011 and 2011 Realignment, various orgs. Library Fund 0107, Library Org 7511, Library Grants Org 7517, Library Book Fund Org 7521, Library Capital Improvements Org 7530, Public Health Fund 0130, Emergency Medical Services Org 5244, Public Works and Planning Fund 0010, Road Fund Org 4510, Public Works and Planning Fund 0115, Fish and Game Propagation Org 4350, Public Works and Planning Fund 0120, Off-Highway License Org 7920, Special Revenue Trust Funds with limited appropriations, Special Revenue Trust Funds with no appropriations.
Okay, any public comment on that one? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
Motion approved.
Motion and a second. All in favor, so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carried. Item 8.
We now close, number 8, we close the fiscal year 2025 budget hearings, and you may entertain a motion second to adopt and authorize the chairman to execute a resolution adopting the final budget for the County of Fresno for fiscal year 25-26, which final budget includes all adjustments to appropriations, revenues, and obligated fund balances made to the recommended budget for the County of Fresno for fiscal year 25-26 during the budget hearing.
Okay, is there any public comment on closing? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
Motion.
Yep.
Second.
Second. All in favor, so by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Move to item 9, public presentation. Is there anyone in the public that wants to present something that was not on the agenda? Hearing none, I'll go back for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, are saying aye? Aye. Any noes? The motion carries. Thank you, everybody.